This is John Jackson Miller, and you're listening to the Star Wars Canon Podcast. May the Force be with you.
Are you new to Star Wars canon? Are you a lifelong fan that's trying to keep up with the ever-expanding universe? Do you wish you had a one-stop shop for everything you could possibly need to stay up to date on Star Wars novels, comics, and more? Look no further. The Star Wars Canon Library mobile app has you covered. Containing a full color-coded timeline, cover art, and links to nearly every piece of canon, and a constantly updated list of upcoming material, this mobile app is essential for any fan that loves that galaxy far, far away. This is the last Star Wars canon app you'll ever need. Available now on Google Play Store, coming to iOS spring 2021.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast, episode number 41, right? Is that right? 41? It is. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name's Brian Miller, and I'm very glad you guys have decided to join us to talk about our favorite thing in the world, yet again, Star Wars. We've got a huge episode lined up this week. There's so much to talk about. If you guys caught the Disney investors call yesterday, you basically already know what we're going to be talking about this week. So we've got a lot to talk about. We've got Mandalorian, a couple of films, 9 or 10 television series. Oh yeah, Jay's already excited. So let's get right into this. Before we start talking about everything going on, let's talk about who we've got on the show tonight. We've got a packed show. First off, Stephen Hall is with us. How's it going, Stephen?
Well, I didn't sleep much last night between the excitement and then waking up early for Mandalorian, so I'm excited to talk with you guys tonight.
Yeah, no, I had a hard time sleeping too. We were just talking about that before recording. It was hard to get to sleep last night. Also, we've got USEF WALY. How's it going, USEF?
Hey guys, what's up? It's the middle of the night over here. I'm not sleeping in the weekends. Not last night because of the announcements, and not tonight because we're talking about it. And I'm happy as hell.
Yeah, man. We were talking. Everybody was talking before we started recording tonight, and it almost seemed like an actual episode that we weren't even recording. So I was like, guys, we've got to actually stop. We've got to get going. So, also with us, we have got Nick ALBERS. How's it going, Nick?
Well, I'm finally home from, doing my whole COVID stick with the National Guard, and I'm hoping everybody's staying safe and healthy because I just want to sit home in my big old media room for the holidays and pretty much just dive into some Star Wars and some Marvel.
Good combo. A lot to talk about with Marvel too for anybody who was a big Marvel fan. Also, we stayed up late and watched that one as well. And also joining the show tonight from across the pond is the one and only, you guys know him and love him, Richard J. How's it going, Jay?
Tis a glorious day to be a Star Wars fan.
It really is.
Glorious indeed.
There is, God, like we were talking before, it's absolutely insane. The amount of stuff we've got coming down the line for ourselves over the next 3 years, man. Just over the next 3 years, it's going to be absolutely insane. So, like I said at the top of the show, guys, we've got a lot to talk about. So we're going to take our time. We're going to go through this bit by bit, unpack everything, make sure nobody's opinion is left on the table before we move on to the next thing. Because, I mean, like I said, there's so much. But before we get into everything, I wanted to make sure I let you guys know that the Star Wars Canon Library mobile app is available on Google Play now. It is available for Android devices. I just did a big update on it. I'm starting to add the TPBs to it now, so you guys can check out this podcast on that mobile app as well. War of the Stars is on there also, so definitely go check out that mobile app. So without further ado, guys, let's get into into Star Wars. So the first thing I've got down that we need to talk about, The Mandalorian Chapter 15 just aired today. We're recording this on Friday, and Nick looks excited as hell. So Chapter 15, The Believer. Let's jump into this. Nick, since you're so excited, man, let's hear it. What have you got to say about this new episode, man?
I'm just gonna say it. I think besides the second episode in season 2 of The Mandalorian, every episode so far has just gotten better and better and better. And you know, this what we knew this was going to be a cliffhanger because I know you guys discussed it last week, that last week's episode was a huge cliffhanger and could have been a season. This one literally felt like they could have just said, we're going to pick up in season 3. Rick, the director, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but I know he directed an episode, and he directed the season finale, didn't he, in season 1? Rick, but holy crap. There was just so much to unpack in this episode, and it was just a lot of little things that we saw, from the interaction with Din, and the reason he keeps his helmet on. Everybody thinks it's because he's a foundling and he's with this very hardcore sect of the Mandalorian culture, and no, yes, but there's a whole nother reason. And when you watch the episode and you find out, it's like, oh my God, there's a whole nother side to Din we never knew about. And as I was watching the episode, it was like, I was thinking, it's like, remember all that that grumbling that was going on a few months ago about Pedro Pascal storming off the set, and he was upset because he wanted his, well, I'm going to spoil it, but he wanted to, have his helmet off more. You got to see Pedro Pascal for about half the episode without his helmet on. And oh my God, it was, as I was talking about before the show, if Filoni and Favreau, with the shows we're going to talk about in a little bit, about Ahsoka and Ranger of the New Republic, which are essentially spin-off shows of The Mandalorian, if this is going where I think it's going, then I think in a few years' time, we're going to be looking at the sequel trilogy, especially 7 and 8, in a completely different light.
Fair enough. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, Din Djarin, I told Kirsty when we were starting to watch it, when they started giving him crap about the helmet again, I was like, yeah, man, this is going to end up being another episode where we see his face again. And it didn't disappoint. I'm absolutely dumbfounded by this episode. It was awesome. The ending of it was great. When Moff Gideon finds out Mando's still alive and is terrified. You can see the look on his face. He's terrified that this guy is coming back to save Grogu, to save the child. And it's leading up to an awesome season finale, and I can't wait. Steven, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think what we just talked about is it really did a nice job of mirroring the episode before the finale last season. I think it was in the episode before the finale last year that Moff Gideon showed up and said, "You don't have no idea how much this child means to me." And then hearing Din Djarin saying the same thing to Moff Gideon, kind of threatening him, almost reversal of where we were last year at this time period. I think the episode did a nice job of adding in some canon connections from Operation Cinder. And, Mayfeld, a character that I really didn't care for in the first season. And I really, going into this episode, I was waiting for him to backstab. And they really showed some character growth and development. And I'm curious where Mayfield will show up next. And just seeing Bill Burr's acting and how he gets so emotional as that Imperial, his former officer, his former leader, was telling him about, how they've destroyed all these planets. And just seeing Mayfield get kind of emotional and teary, and seeing Din like giving that look like, do not mess this up, we're so close, we need to get out of here. I think it opens up so many doors of what we could see in the future with that character. Who knows where he'll show up again at. And I think one of the things that I took away from it was correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was the first episode of the entire series without Grogu. You can't remember. I think he's been in every other episode.
I think
So,
you're right.
when the episode ended up and I'm like, there's been so much marketing around, yeah, it's the Mandalorian, but it's also the child and now Grogu. And I think like seeing an episode that was amazing without Grogu and just showing like, it's still the Mandalorian show. We're still focusing on him. He's on a mission to get back Grogu. And I think, this show could stand on its own, even if there's multiple episodes without Grogu in the future. But I enjoyed it. I cannot wait. It was a really intense, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time until, Mayfeld shoots the officer and then just the breakout scene. And how amazing is it that he has a whole team now that's willing to have his back and help him get out of situations that he couldn't do on his own. I loved it, and I'm glad we're going to be on the finale next week. Can't wait to see how it wraps up and what we get leading into season 3.
USEF?
Give me the finale. Give it to me now. Give me the finale. Give it to me now. I swear, like everything you guys just said, and the fact that we are focused on the Mandalorian, and we get to see a lot of what makes up the world of the Mandalorian or the universe, like the time that he's in. I mean, Mayfeld. Sure, I didn't really care for him. I didn't think he was a character that we would come across again at all, and I didn't think he would have any impact on us. But definitely, this sort of he's got a heart sort of thing makes this comment where it's like, hey, everybody needs to sleep at night, or he needs to sleep at night, or something like that. And he basically he shows us this other angle. And that angle may take us later on into another sort of show, may take us on into another sort of setting for him and for others. In exactly the same way you, Brian, mentioned before when we heard Cassian Andor say, he's done some things he's not proud of, or things that, he's been through the grit. And we're going to see that in the series, in Andor series. And we're going to see some of what Mayfeld perhaps does, or other people do as well. There are, you see people after Mando makes it through. Obviously, he's he and Mayfeld are sort of everybody thinks they are stormtroopers, and then they walk into they drive through the hangar, and everybody's like, for the glory of the Empire, for the glory of the Empire. And they're all like, yeah, up in arms, woo. And then you really hear him go off on his own, like in his mind, he's really like, this mission, what happened? 10,000 people died. Yeah, heroes, right? Perhaps not for them. It's that grid really resonated with me. Of course, with the fact that my heart was pounding when I saw Din Djarin actually take his helmet off, and I was like, whoa, wait, come on, okay, he's gonna put it back on again, right? So nobody's actually gonna see him. Oh man, they saw him. Yeah, it's just a fantastic episode. It's just I'm still fanboying over it.
Okay, so you've pretty much covered all the points. It was nice to see the inside of Slave One, the gyro. Rotating motion of Slave One, seeing it from inside. I love how with Miggs Mayfield, they're going through this Han Solo arc where you see him beginning, he's a rogue, you don't like him, he's a scoundrel, he's a bit of dirt, he's trash. And now when you come to see him here in the cantina scene, in the officer's mess, he has that hot shot first, like that Han Greedo standoff, and the whole pause. One of the things that I really liked about this show, and I'm going to be interested to see where this goes, is that when Din Djarin took his helmet off, his face was scanned into the ISB database, and he used that data stick to access the knowledge that he needs. Now, if anybody from the Republic gain access to that database, Din Djarin's face is going to be tagged along as the owner of that data stick. So that could have some serious ramifications for him sometime in the Star Wars canon. Maybe not sometime soon, but certainly I'm assuming sometime, in the future, that moment is going to cause a problem for him.
Yeah, no,
and I think writer director Rick Famuyiwa did an amazing job with this. Really set up the feels now and the anticipation for next week's finale.
Yeah, no, I'm ready for next week's finale. I don't want to see the season end already because it feels like it just started, but I'm really, really excited to see how this one's going to end. And I mean, you've got a one up from last year, and you've got to beat the premiere of this last season, the season 2 premiere. You have to beat that because that was an insane premiere for a show. So I think it's safe to say we're all really, really excited for Chapter 16 to see where this is going to go, who's going to pop up, how this is going to end. So that should do it for Mandalorian. Let us know, guys, in the comments section what you guys thought of this week's episode of Mandalorian. We'll go through and see what you guys thought of it as well. So if you have been living under a rock, I'm going to let you in on some news from yesterday, man. Disney investors call. For those of you that didn't watch this, I'm sure you guys have seen the news by now. We have got an entire new slate of Star Wars material coming from Lucasfilm over the next 4 years, and holy crap, it is an insane amount of stuff. This is going to be a hell of a ride. This is where the fun begins. So to kick off, this list of everything we've got to talk about, there's a lot. So like I said, we're going to unpack this bit by bit. Everybody take your time and just, let's talk about this stuff, man. First and foremost, I think the big one that everybody's excited for, the next Star Wars film has been announced, set for release Christmas of 2023, a Rogue Squadron directed by Patty Jenkins. Jay, I know you're really, really excited about Rogue Squadron. What do you think about this announcement, man?
It means everything to me. This, as you know yourself, I showed you all screenshots of my conversations with Mike Stackpole the second it was announced, and I'm looking forward to see where they go from it. We got Dennis Lawson. We got, he's still alive. We got Oscar Isaac. We've also got Harrison Dula. Are they going to bring Vanessa Marshall in? And are they going to go post The Rise of Skywalker? Are we going to see Dennis Lawson be Old Man Wedge passing down the keys to the X-Wings to the new generation? Or are we going to go back to post-Return of the Jedi, pre-sequel trilogy? Are we going to have a whole new line of characters? But I can't see that happening because we've got Wedge. Wedge is on the payroll. So they're going to utilize Wedge as much as they can, Dennis Lawson. So I think this could be something that's set post The Rise of Skywalker. I think it could be the groundwork of them setting up testing the waters to see if post The Rise of Skywalker is also something that they can dip their toes into.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like I said, I know you're a big EU guy, especially with the Rogue Squadron series. This is insane, man. I was telling you guys before we started recording, I was telling Kirsty the other day, that's 3 years away from right now. I mean, 3 years from this moment, we'll be counting down days to go see Rogue Squadron. And I told her, we got used to seeing a Star Wars movie every year for the last 5 years. I mean, we used to have to wait 3 years for a film, or 15, depending on what generation you were. And now we're back to 3 years, and maybe we're just spoiled, but we got plenty to keep us occupied until then. But for me, I'm like, oh gosh, I just want it like next year. I just want it now. I need it now. So I'm stupid excited over this film. It's definitely not what I thought was going to be coming down the line. I was definitely expecting something completely different, but I'll take it, man. I'm really excited. Steven, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Patty Jenkins from seeing her work on Wonder Woman, and I'm looking forward to the next Wonder Woman in a couple of weeks here. I think, if you got a chance to watch the video that she posted online last night, where she's talking about how her dad was a fighter pilot and how he died in battle, and, seeing how she's going to make this a very personal human connection. Like, she's going to talk, we're going to focus, of course, on the fighters, but we're also going to focus on their family, their friends, that they don't know if it's the last time they're going to see those X-Wings fly off and never to come home again. Because think about Battle of Yavin, think about Battle of Endor. How many different starfighters did not make it back? A lot of the unnamed ones, or the background characters that got a quick little name and then they were killed off. And so she's going to make this a very personal story, because anytime that we've seen starfighters and having battles in space, it's usually just maybe for 5-10 minutes of a film. Whereas now this is going to be the major focus. You're going to follow these people in the cockpits. I think, over the past couple of years with Alphabet Squadron and the novel series, with having the different Squadron video game right now, there's a bigger emphasis on it. And I liked how Jay said, it would be great to see Wedge Antilles, maybe a cameo from Poe or Hera. Like, we're going to get some new characters. We're going to get some old ones. I'm excited to see Star Wars back on the big screen. And there's been so much, what will the theater experience look like because of everything going on in 2020? but just to know that Disney's confident that in the next couple of years we're going to get back on, you know, the theater. And you know, if we think about it, 3 years ago, 2017 would have been Last Jedi, right? And so, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't seem that long ago. So it'll be here before we know it. I personally don't know a lot about the, you know, the Rogue Squadron from the Legends side of things. I've been following the canon. And so I'm kind of going into this with fresh eyes, and I'm excited to see where it takes us.
USEF?
Something I'm really interested in looking at. I was looking obviously that video which Stephen mentioned. You guys, listeners, you have to look at it. It shows you just the kind of soul which, you know, which is being brought into the fray here, into thought. Because honestly, Star Wars in space and the amount of action in space, you know, if you guys are playing Squadrons at the moment, you can see that, you know, you get a little bit of the taste which Disney wants to show you, you know, a little bit of the feel which you want to get. What is one of the most brilliant things about space? The traveling through space. That you can just go from planet to planet and experience all the different scenery of the planets, as well as the blackness of just being out there with space stations and different ships and fighters and your squad all around you fighting for something. The communication involved, the coordination involved, the teamwork, the whole dependence on yourself. The mental challenge of being a fighter pilot on Earth is insane. Let alone you trying to take that into you know, a Star Wars setting. I think we're gonna see, you know, I mean, the real grit of Star Wars fighting and action. We've started to see that already since Disney. Well, even before Disney, Star Wars is kind of PC, so it doesn't really, you know, there's much blood, there isn't too much aggressive violence. It's there, of course, it's there. But for you to now see sort of like a little bit of the darker sides, a little bit of, you know, the grit and the seriousness that Mando takes with every fight and with every blow he gets, and then you get this sort of feeling from someone who's inherited a legacy of, you know, fighter pilot, and she's going to do this with a full action sequence for Star Wars. I'm really excited to see a pilot's point of view of being a space, you know, a starfighter. That's going to be fantastic, I think.
So I was, when they announced it, I was, for lack of a better word, I felt like I was 18, 19 years old again. And y'all are talking about, man, we have to wait 3 years for another Star Wars movie. I grew up post Return of the Jedi, and I never thought we would get another one. They kept on saying we would, and we finally got it, you know. And then, you know, it's 3 years in between, and then we kept on getting Star Wars all the time. And then people were saying, oh, I'm burnt out by Star Wars. People aren't burnt out by Star Wars. What people want is, you know, a good story. And I think what we've seen from Patty Jenkins, sorry, my daughter came up with my phone. And I think what people want is they want a good story. They want an amazing story. And I think so far what Patty Jenkins has given us, especially with Wonder Woman, and I'm just in the same boat with Steven, is, you know, I'm looking forward to Wonder Woman 84, is I want a good story. And I think with Rogue Squadron, we're going to get that. And I think, you know, and I am really hoping, you know, because they've you know, the new canon, you know, you know, they started bringing back some of the original authors from the EU, Timothy Zahn, you know, because he's writing Thrawn. And guys, I really wish I was on air last week when with the Ahsoka, no, 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, about the whole Ahsoka thing. But oh my God. And I think the fact that Michael Stackpole writing these books about the X-Wing and Rogue Squadron, and then Race Squadron, and He wrote a couple books for the New Jedi Order that to me were some of the best Star Wars Star Wars books to date. And, he gets it. And I really hope that either in the run up to the movie or after the movie, they bring him back and they say, hey, Rogue Squadron. We already did Alphabet Squadron. I've heard a lot of great things about that book and book series and everything, but Mike, Rogue Squadron, come on back. We'll bring you back into the fold. He's all the groundwork and everything. And I think USEF laid a very good point. It's like Star Wars for the more or less is PC, which it is. But there is a reason why a lot of veterans and a lot of first responders and everybody really loved Rogue One. And it wasn't because of the Jedi. It was very nitty and gritty, and it was a war movie. That's the best way I could describe it. Rogue One to me was the war in Star Wars, and to me, that's what I'm looking forward to in Rogue Squadron. I think Patty Jenkins is a perfect person to lead us in. And I will say this right now. I think Disney's like, you know what? 2020 was a wash. Everybody can agree 2020 has sucked, especially for movies. This is the first time I think in 11 years that Marvel did not release a movie this year because of all the delays, because of what's going on. But guess what? 2021, Marvel's coming back strong. 2021, guess what else is coming back strong? We got the Bad Batch coming, next year. I mean, granted, we're talking about Rogue Squadron. So Star Wars is in a good place. And I think I think yesterday was that, a lot of people kind of threw dirt on them because of, the Rise of Skywalker. But I think season 2 of Mando has kind of brought them back up, and Rogue Squadron to me is going to be their re-enunciation, say we're back, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, you brought up the Patty Jenkins video a while ago, and that video of her talking about how her father was a fighter pilot and how he's not with her anymore, he's gone, but she's always wanted to make the best fighter pilot movie ever. And you got to beat Top Gun. You've got to beat Top Gun. But how do you beat Top Gun? You take Top Gun and throw a Star Wars skin over it. That's how you beat Top Gun. So, yeah, I'm over the moon about Rogue Squadron. Like I said, I can't wait for this movie to finally get to see something from it. You know what I mean? And obviously it's still in pre-production, but the fact they got Patty Jenkins in to direct this thing, I absolutely loved Wonder Woman. I think she's a great choice for this project, especially considering, like I said, her background with her dad being a fighter pilot. So absolutely excited for Rogue Squadron. We did get a little bit of information for the Untitled Taika Waititi film that is still on track, but we haven't really gotten anything really from it, and she didn't really give a whole lot. So, Steven, what did you kind of gather from what she had talked about a little bit about Taika's film?
Yeah, she kind of just hinted at some, general that it's going to be kind of his usual sense of humor. It's going to be a little bit more of that kind of excitement, that uniqueness. I kind of really hope that it goes to a different, maybe time era or a different, edge of the galaxy where we are seeing something completely different. I think letting him run free and seeing that, I think he directed Chapter 8, the season finale last year, actually. And so seeing him, how he handled Mandalorian, like, he was able to include some of his sense of humor, but also keeping it in line and with the vision that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have put in place the first part of the season. And so I'm excited to kind of see him get a chance to do something completely different. Who knows? Maybe this is the film that Kevin Feige is going to produce. Maybe they'll work together. From what I understand, that Taika Waititi is going to be directing Thor: Love and Thunder, or the new one, Thor movie, this upcoming January in Australia. And then I bet that his next project will be Star Wars. So that would probably be in line for a 2024 Christmas release, if I had to guess.
Probably, yeah. You're probably not wrong on that. USEF, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know too much about we don't know too much about what's going to happen, because honestly, exactly along the lines of what Stephen was saying, I just hope that I just hope we see a different part of the Star Wars world. I'm really excited, and I wanted to make a comment really about the humor side. And I know I'm going to go on about this again and again a little bit. This is probably going to be about the second time mentioned on the podcast, but the humor of Star Wars has always been a part of Star Wars. It's always been a great part of Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, I am not against it, but I am against of using it to sort of negate a lot of progress we've made or Star Wars has made for certain characters. I use this example for everyone really, but Star Wars in particular. When General Hux was, a dictator, sort of speech giving, he was a Führer standing up there giving a speech in episode 7. Then episode 8, he was so totally just like wiped the floor with completely, and he was, the humor side of it. He was just for the entertainment and just for the sort of to be the laughing stock. He was sacrificed, sort of thing. I hope that YTD, what he does with his humor is going to be a little bit more. I don't want to use the word tasteful, but I want to use it like it's sort of more constructive for characters, constructive for the story. I want him to move along, entertain me, give me that sort of. I might be committing a crime here. Stop me if I am. But if I'm gonna say a story which is kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy-ish, so if it's gonna be sort of light humor, light action, bit of this, bit of that, going in with a sort of new perspective within this universe, that's what I personally predict is gonna happen. If you just just off the bat, just looking at the title, thinking about this, that's what I think we're gonna be getting. We don't know much, but it's anyone's guess really. What do you think?
Yeah, no, humor works in Star Wars if it's done correctly. And, we don't say a certain J name around here at my house anyway, but when you're talking about this particular character and then you have poop and fart jokes in episode 1, like that doesn't work in Star Wars. That's not funny. But there is certain humor that does work in Star Wars. The whole laugh it up fuzzball, stuff like that. That works. And there's been a couple of times in the new films where it did work really, really well. But but a lot of times it falls flat, Jay, what do you think, man?
Well, following off the comments about humor, I mean, if you look at The Force Awakens, it's practically a comedy movie up until the third act. Up until Han Solo's death, you're laughing at every moment in the scenes. Mm-hmm. But there was one thing that I did really like. I'm not sure if any of you guys follow Taika Waititi's Instagram account, but after it was announced that he would be directing a movie, he took to Instagram, and his response to the announcement was, as a long-time Star Wars fan, I'm so angry about what I'm about to do to ruin this new film. So the director himself has a good sense of humor. He knows he's going to go into this. He knows he's going to get haters, whatever the product comes out with, whether it's good or not. Exactly, he's going to get haters. And then there was some great sense of humor displayed by a lot of the fans on there as well, saying, "Oh, don't worry, Taika. If it makes you feel any better, we're going to hate him more than you will." But you could see, and there was little emojis with a heart after. You could see it was done with the intention of just laughing along with the director. But yeah, going off what you said about humor in Star Wars, humor's always been in Star Wars, whether it's words used, like, for example, the very popular Huttese words, poodoo. But poodoo means fodder, food. But we all know what it sounds like. They use that a lot. You go to Last Jedi. I really did like that one scene between Finn and Rose at the very beginning, where she looks at Finn as if he's the legend. He is the guy that turned against the First Order, and he just looks at her in amazement to say, and he says, "Well, may the Force be with you," because he has nothing more to say to this girl that he's just met. So there is some great humor in Star Wars. We don't know much else about this film other than the fact that it's got a really cool logo, which does give off a sort of 1980s vibe with bedrock. It's got a lot of Flintstones vibe to it. It's got this big stone logo of Star Wars, and it's written in a very old style Hanna-Barbera style cartoon. But other than that, we know nothing about this movie. We don't even know when it's set. All we've got is theories, and it's nice. Looking forward to seeing where it's going to go.
So I will say this: when Taika Waititi directed Thor, what was the last one called?
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Thank you. I was having a brain fart. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is very lighthearted and everything." If you actually watch that movie is not lighthearted at all. He uses comedy to deal with very serious issues, but the comedy is not there all the time. It is actually it is a very serious film that have comedy that break up the film, like I can't think of the Korg and whatever is. The revolution has begun. I think Taika Waititi is an excellent pick, for a new film that's going off in a new direction, in a new era, in a new part of the galaxy for the Star Wars universe. And a couple of reasons why. Number one, he already proved it because he essentially saved the Thor and Chris Hemsworth, because for better or worse, and we can all agree, out of the entire core Avengers in the MCU, the Thor movies were not exactly the most well received. But Thor Ragnarok has suddenly, that allowed them to say, hey, you know what, we're moving Chris Hemsworth forward into the MCU. And that then allowed Taika Waititi then to go pursue some other options in the larger Disney family. And we've already discussed that. He's directed a couple of amazing episodes in The Mandalorian. And now he gets his own movie in the Star Wars universe. And we were talking about this, in the run-up to the show. I think, Brian and a couple others are thinking this is going to take place at the start of the Jedi being founded. I'm thinking no. I'm thinking where this is going to wind up being is in this new era that they have essentially announced, the High Republic era. And what better place to put, a very up and coming director that has, that can, take on some serious issues, but add fun and humor and comedy in Taika Waititi. And, it starts 250 years in the past prior to episode 1. And, we know about the acolyte that takes place towards the end. And we got the books and everything coming. And so my honest answer is I really think Taika Waititi's film is going to be a very fun, moving film going forward into the past of Star Wars in the High Republic.
Yeah, the only reason I was thinking it was going to be, the beginning of the Jedi or something like that is some of the concept art that she showed while she was talking about that film, and it had this planet with this diamond-shaped, almost looked like moon around it, and it kind of had this Mortis feel to it, or something from, Dawn of the Jedi, for those of you who've read that Legends novel. I know Jay has read that one. Jay, what do you remember which concept art piece I'm talking about? And
Yeah.
and how similar was it to that?
Yeah, when I first saw that, I thought the same. I thought, oh, this is Mortis. But then the more she was talking, I don't know if it was legitimately concept art for that movie or if it was just images in the background. But when I saw that prism in orbit, I thought, oh, this is going to be Mortis, or at least it's going to touch on something. Are we going to see the Mortis trilogy or some sort of Mortis arc? Because I know originally, remember, Matt Smith was supposed to be the antagonist of The Rise of Skywalker, and he was dropped from the film completely. All of his scenes were cut, and there was a lot of rumors going on that he was supposed to be the son. Now, take that for what it is. I can't verify that that was, in fact, the case. All we know is that Matt Smith was announced for the movie, then dropped. Some people were thinking a young Palpatine. There was a lot of speculation that he could be from the Mortis trilogy as the son. So I personally would love to see more from the Mortis arc. That was the arc that got me into the Clone Wars. So I would love to see them do more of that, explore more of Mortis, because whenever this is going to be set, it'll feed into that arc in the Clone Wars. It'll also feed into Rebels, the Rebels Season 4, when you see a lot of the Mortis arc, the Mortis artwork on the stones where the Empire is constructing the Jedi Temple in the hopes of luring Ezra into the temple and basically trap him there with his family. So I would be ecstatic if it was, in fact, I'm not sure if it's the Mortis ship. I don't think it's really got a name. It's just a structure, a conduit through which all force is filtered throughout the galaxy. So I would love to see them touch on that.
Right on. Well, that does it for films, though. Kathleen Kennedy didn't really touch a whole lot on the films other than that Rogue Squadron announcement that she dropped on us. So basically everything else that she announced is going to be coming to Disney Plus in the next few years. And I know everybody on this panel is excited about different things. There's certain things that's tickling everybody's fancies differently, as dirty as that sounds. So we're going to talk about these first two back to back because I know Nick is extremely excited about these two. Rangers of the New Republic. It will take place concurrently with The Mandalorian and will culminate in a crossover series with that, Mandalorian, and the other new series they've announced, Ahsoka, that will be produced by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. What do you think about this, Nick?
Well, first things first, let's just say this. I think, there has been a lot of talk about, theaters and the way movie theater and movie viewing I highly doubt we'll ever see a movie top $3 billion like Avengers Endgame over my shoulder. But what I think Disney did is, especially given all the backlash about what Warner Brothers did for their entire 2021 slate, Disney is essentially saying, look, streaming is going to be the primary thing moving forward. And, I'm going to get to that here in a minute. But Lucas has even said, Lucas and Kennedy have specifically said over and over, Star Wars is meant to be seen on the big screen. And that's why I think Rogue Squadron is. I think that's what Taika Waititi's film's going to be. And you're going to go into that, when those films come out, you're going to go into those theaters and you're going to be like, oh my God, this is what it's like to see Star Wars in a movie theater. Now, that said, I think the storytelling of Star Wars moving forward is on the small screen. And I don't know where to go with all this because first things first, I wasn't a huge fan of Rosario Dawson when she was announced, and then there was talk that she was going to be Ahsoka Tano. I was like, I don't know. Why not just have Ashley Eckstein do it and everything? But she pulled it off, and she did an amazing job. And then that scene where she was saying, where is your boss, master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? And I am telling you, that is going to lead to us essentially getting a live action Sabine character. Whether it's the voice actor who played her or somebody else, we're going to get a live action Sabine. So we will get another Mandalorian. It would not surprise me if in season 3 we see Sabine and Ahsoka, and then that leads us into the Ahsoka series. to then go find Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra. And then, while that's going on, Gina Carano's character, and then Boba Fett, and I'm having a brain. Who is the guy that they got out of jail and then said, oh, he mysteriously died? Mayfeld, thank you. I'm telling you, Mayfeld and Gina Carano's character, they're going to be the Rangers of the New Republic. And Stephen was right. If you just watch that scene where they were just sitting at a table, and in fact, that entire scene where Din takes the thing from Mayfield, pulls off his helmet, and you find out that Din was, he grew up as a foundling, as a Mandalorian, as this extreme sect, but then he was a former Imperial whatever. And, so you have all this stuff going on in that whole table scene with Mayfield's former commander, Din, and him, and they were just sitting and they were talking about Operation Cinder, and you could tell where they were going. They were dropping nuggets there, and I was just watching this, and it was like they are going to redeem the sequel trilogy. And I think, I'm telling you guys, if this is where they're going, then I really think Kathleen Kennedy, look, and Kathleen Kennedy knows that she has two golden gooses in Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And she said, here, go essentially go make right any of the mistakes that were done in the sequel trilogy, not retcon them, because the sequel trilogy is not going to get retconned, but they are going to essentially make sure that they're going to tie in as much of the sequel trilogy in with these three shows. And, unfortunately, we know Ahsoka's dead in the last, because we heard her voice in The Rise of Skywalker. So we know she died. Whether she dies in her series or in this ultimate crossover event, I don't know. But I'm just loving it. And I think they understand that Filoni and Favreau get Star Wars. And in case you guys, a lot of people I'm sure are aware of this, but Lucas, for lack of a better, he has essentially, from everything I've read and found, he has signed off and he has blessed the Mandalorian. He thinks this is where Star Wars should have gone, and where he wanted it to go, because he actually had plans for a live action series, but he could not get it off the ground because the price at the time was too expensive. And then we see with Game of Thrones, and now with this, I am really looking forward to essentially, I'm going to call it the Mandoverse, because that's essentially what we're walking into right now. I mean, it is a great time to be a Star Wars fan, moving forward.
I'm really excited about this project in particular. I don't really have much to add. Honestly, you guys really said a lot, but honestly, what I really want to see is just a lot more meat, a lot more events. Something which Mandalorian has done for us is really give us an exciting show, and something which Mandalorian has also done for us is give us quite a lot to talk about. It's not just like in one episode, in every single episode, we're talking about a lot of different aspects, not just what happened in the episode, but like, oh, did you see in episode 2? It might have been a boring episode to some, but it was a continuation, because you see that character in season 1, and then, hey, somebody else who you might have seen along both seasons is going to show up in season 3 or 4. if hopefully, and I do hope that Mandalorian keeps going for that long. But I mean, all the other shows, like, I mean, I don't want to skip ahead here, but like everything else, like okay, I won't skip ahead. I'll wait for each topic and we'll go in bit by bit. But I'm really excited just to see writing for the sake of good writing. A lot of what we saw from Star Wars recently was a little bit of constricted writing. Up until Rogue One, it was really constricted, I felt. You have one path, you have one goal, you're all supporting this one goal, this is what we're doing. And then Rogue One was not that. Rogue One was fleshing out each character. This one's, the Guardian feels like this, and this is how he feels. The Rebel General Saw Gerrera, you've seen him because obviously we've seen him before throughout Star Wars lore. Throughout canon, and we've seen so much more, characters. We've started feeling each character can have his own show, and it's happening. And Andor, and then Ahsoka, and so on. So many people here, so many different stories, Star Wars already has something for everyone. And now it's just going to be expanding on that. It's just going to keep expanding. I was going to save this comment to the end, but I'll just throw it in there now. I told you guys this yesterday, but I didn't really make a fuss about it. I think it's also, we have to be careful here. I hope this doesn't get too daunting, all of this new content. I want to make sure that I say this point carefully because I don't want to piss too many people off. There is such a thing as too much content. There is such a thing as too much to keep up with, as too much to follow. Personally, for me, I can't get enough no matter what you do, or at least that's what I think. Throw them at me. Keep throwing them at me. But for new fans, for people that, because presumably this is what Disney's trying to do, right? You're trying to keep the old fans happy. And you're trying to make sure that people who are about to walk out that door stay for the next matinee. And you're also trying to make sure that other people who might not have been so hot, might not have been so attracted to Star Wars, come over and say like, hey, yeah, this is the exciting stuff we thought we were going to get. We just never got before. So we're going to see this and we're going to go for that. There's a lot of different avenues for them to choose. Too much choice makes people think that it's too complex. I know I'm speaking from a marketing perspective a little bit here. I should be speaking more about the content and how good it is for Star Wars. I do think that how good it is for Star Wars genuinely depends on newcomers' opinions, on people being attracted to Star Wars. Story-wise, I just hope that it's fantastic writing. I don't hope that it's good writing. I hope that it's fantastic writing. I'm very excited to see, fighter pilots going at it and giving us the life of it and giving us the meat of it. And I'm very excited to see Rangers, make sure that, yes, I see what you're doing for the New Republic. I see how you're sort of taking on, old corruption, and you have this inside you that you could be ex-Empire, but you're still fighting for the good. Kind of like how Mayfield is like, he's trying to sleep at night and so on. Guys, like, I love this story. I love these aspects. Give me more. Let's just make sure that I don't have too much to follow. How many episodes is that going to be per week? Am I going to be watching only Star Wars? Am I going to be doing only this? What about new people? Are they going to feel like there's too much to follow? That's just the sort of precautionary comment I'm throwing in there. I want your guys' opinion on this, all of you, because really, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not worried. I'm just concerned. This is voicing my concerns here. What do you guys think?
I think it's going to wind up being very staggered, if you ask me. I think you're going to have, you have The Mandalorian. You're going to get a movie that's staggered. You're going to get The Mandalorian, next year. And then I think that may wind up crossing over into the Rangers of the New Republic, or even, a couple months down the line, and then Ahsoka a couple months after that. If you guys, and the reason I say this is because if you looked at the release dates for the MCU, WandaVision is coming out in a month. And if you do about 8 weeks, that takes you till about middle of March. And guess what comes out in the middle of March? Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I think, Yusef, I think you're right. I think, it could get overwhelming once it all is out. But I think when they release it and it goes week by week, you're going to get, it's just going to be one time, and then in a couple months you get another series down the line.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
And Yusef, I have something I want to add to your comments as well. I think, a couple of ways I'm looking at this. First of all, all of these different properties that we're going to talk about for the rest of the night, they're so different in their style and their tone, and yet they're all Star Wars. So it's going to be like a buffet. If you want the Bounty Hunter show, you can have the Bounty Hunter show. If you're like us and you want to get the full picture, then yeah, you're going to watch every single one of these shows. But I think by seeing this variety of shows that are going to come and go, people can just pick and choose what they'd like. Like my wife watches Mandalorian, but she hasn't dipped her toes yet into Clone Wars and Rebels. And hopefully she will at some point. But if she doesn't, she's not going to get the full picture. She doesn't know the whole character of Ahsoka. She liked her when she saw her, but it's still one of those things that we get so much more out of it because we follow all the little details. I think another thing like that is, I watch Star Trek too, and there's, 8 or 9 different series. There's 800 episodes. I could have just started with the CBS All Access recent shows, but I chose to go back to 1966. So like years from now, all of these are going to be cataloged on Disney Plus. And, as the next generation of Star Wars fans are coming up, they can pick and choose what they want. And maybe there'll be some people like us that will want to dive into all of it, and it'll all be there and at their own pace. They can get into all this and find the right timelines that, Brian will still be updating on the app at that point years from now. And so we'll still be able to follow it all. Real quick, I want to share about, I love Ahsoka. We talked about last week. She's one of my favorite characters. Here she is right behind me. And I feel like this is going to be such a great opportunity for us to follow a character who is so force sensitive because, we followed Luke and Anakin, of course, and Rey. But this is a long-term storytelling. We've already been introduced to her in live action. We've watched her grow up literally in front of our eyes from the Clone Wars to Rebels. And now here she is as an adult, a seasoned veteran, if you will. And so to see her and delving further into the Force, to see her, sharing this Force perspective, it's going to feel very different, I think, in tone than what we see with The Mandalorian. And then with Rangers of the New Republic, I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. If it's Cara Dune, if it's going to be, some different fighter pilots. But again, it's going to be a different flavor. And I agree with what Nick said. I think it's really going to be like you're going to have different seasons and that are going to kind of be spread out. For example, they mentioned that Mandalorian season 3 is going to pick up next December, right around Christmas time. And that makes sense. I bet if these shows are going to be in the following year, you're going to start to get that peppered in. Maybe we'll see Ahsoka again. Maybe we'll see, Cara Dune and how they're setting up these characters. That way, when their shows do kick off, hopefully in a year or two, we'll be able to jump right in at that point. I was talking to you guys before we started filming today, but this idea of how Marvel did it with the Defenders on Netflix. They had a Luke Cage season, you had a Daredevil, a Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and they all culminated into the Defenders. And I think that's really how we're going to see this. I don't know if it'll be like a 2-hour movie or if it would be like a mini series where you get to see all of them facing off against a common foe, whether it be Thrawn or someone else. But I'm very excited to kind of continue to delve into these shows being produced by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau.
Yeah, I was thinking about that comment. I love that comment. Briefly, I'll just add something we were talking about how that happened in the MCU as well, or in other shows that, you sort of have a culmination mini-series. I'd love to see that rather than, like a 2-hour or 3-hour like grand finale or something. But, as long as the writing is in it for it. And just to sort of recap something else, like you guys, honestly, I do agree with your points that, yeah, you'll have everything. It'll be more like a buffet and everything. Of course, I completely agree with that. That's actually a really good way of thinking about it. But, that really depends on the writing. So, for example, because I sort of knew what the saber was, the one Moff Gideon had at the end of season 1, but I didn't realize how important it was. Other people were blowing their minds, or had their minds blown. But because of how it looked and how it was shown, you don't have to appreciate how awesome it was. You just see him with a freaking cool thing right there. And then he even if you have no idea what the Darksaber is at all, and then he brings it up, he mentions it when he's sort of interrogating Grogu, or he's not interrogating, so I suppose he's torturing him or whatever. But he's he brings it up and he says, yeah, this is, he sort of makes a point of it. This is important. So this is for both types of viewers, fresh faces like me, as well as people who love it. So that's really important in the writing. If you can create this sort of mini series where you have the bout and you knock them out, you go in for all 10 rounds, and everybody else is going at it, and they're coming in together for this culmination. And you can do this. Obviously, it'll need some backstory to see how you got there. But if you can do that without, people needing to resort back to it, I mentioned before that, Mandalorian has made it almost compulsory for me, not for everyone else, for me, to go back and watch Clone Wars and Rebels. I haven't seen Rebels at all. And before, I'm only up to halfway through season 4 with Clone Wars, and I'm still catching up on my novels. I'm almost done with Tarkin, and I've got a few after that. This is really important for me to get the whole picture and to really appreciate it. The writing itself of the shows has to sort of show me that that's not necessarily what you need in order to truly just at least watch it and enjoy it and get the gist of it. And I think Mando, if it's anything like Mando, it's going to be fair.
Well, there really isn't much left for me to add to that. If we go back and revisit episode 40 of the podcast, where I stated I think that the 3rd season of The Mandalorian could very well be the final series. Well, I just blew that straight out of the water. My jaw physically dropped when I heard Kathleen say these 3 shows are going to move together, consecutively intertwine and culminate in one big finale. Now, we know Ahsoka's after Thrawn. We see that at the end of Rebels, and she stated it directly in her episode. So, and much like what we were talking about earlier, which Stephen reiterated, you're getting 3 shows with potentially 3 different styles. If you want a bounty hunter show, you can watch Mandalorian. You want a show that touches more on the Force, you can watch Ahsoka. Range of the New Republic, yeah, I firmly believe we're going to get a lot of Cara Dune there. I'm hoping as well that with Rangers of the New Republic, they can bring more of the New Republic in. So you might have, for example, one episode will follow ground troopers, another may follow the pilots. So you might get hopefully you'll get a mix of different episodes there. And then it's what they can then all bring to the finale. So you've got the Rangers of the New Republic, they can bring the fleet. You've got Ahsoka can bring, hopefully, Ezra, maybe Sabine, if Sabine is still there with them as well. And then you got Mando then, who, if Boba is still around, can bring Boba and Slave One. I'm hoping for a live-action Thrawn with Lars Mikkelsen cast. Now, if you look at images of Lars Mikkelsen and you look at images of the very original Thrawn, going back to 1991, the original Thrawn looks more like a middle-aged Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye. He's got the long floppy hair. Towards the millennium, they crew cutted him. They gave him the sort of Tom Cruise Mission Impossible look. But for Rebels, when they brought him in and canonized him, he's got high cheekbones, long face, receding hair. He looks like Lars Mikkelsen because Lars has these same traits. Lars is a screen actor as well as a voice actor, so he's established as an actor who could pull this off. I really want to see, specifically as well, that we got to take yourself back to 1991. There was no Star Wars. If we didn't have the Thrawn novels, we may never have had the special edition or the sequel or the prequel trilogy, because there was nothing. They had no way of gauging, is there any interest in Star Wars? So I'm hoping this will be the finale that a lot of the fans from back in the 90s that started the expanded universe off, I'm hoping this will be something for them to say, that's what I wanted to see. And I'm personally hoping to see Thrawn's famous maneuver in live action, where he takes the Chimera and banks it on his side to make the Republic believe that the ship has been disabled, but he banks it so the ship tilts towards the Republic so nobody can see the entire TIE fighter battalion exit the Star Destroyer and wait in an ambush position. And as the Republic press forward to gain the advantage, TIE fighters come from above and below the Star Destroyer, and they just rip right through the entire Republic fleet. That's something I would like to see. Because as I mentioned to, it was either in the chat or it might have been pre the recording last week. We're in the Filoniverse, and I was only referencing just what Favreau and Filoni could do with future products if they carried on in the same vein as Mando. Little did I know that all of this was already happening, and we got this announcement yesterday. So we got this Filoniverse here, these 3 shows, and it's going to be an insane time. Following from what Nick was saying, we were talking just before the recording, how are they going to stagger it? Now, again, and USEF raised a really good point. Me personally, I'd be happy to go down the CW route. Monday we'll have Ahsoka, Wednesday we'll have Rangers of the Republic, and Friday we'll have Mandalorian. Or are they going to stagger it? Series 1 of Ahsoka will be in the first quarter. Series 1 of Rangers of the New Republic will be in the second quarter. Season 3 of The Mandalorian will be in the third and the fourth quarter. I don't know where they're going to go with it, but me personally, I would love it if they all ran consecutively as well and were broadcast, but were made available on stream consecutively. So it'd be nice to switch on a Monday and have one, switch on a Wednesday, have another, switch on a Friday to get the third, to cap that week off. But whether or not they stagger it and just stagger it throughout the year. So, for example, let's just say we know that 2021 is when Mandalorian Season 3 starts. So let's just assume that these other shows start in 2022. It would be nice to have Season 1 of both shows run one after the other, and then Season 4 of The Mandalorian run at the end of the year. It would be nice to have that content staggered throughout the year, because you look at one thing that The Mandalorian has done against something from another streaming show from Netflix, a completely brand new show from a franchise that's familiar. Netflix will season dump it, and that's great. I love a good season dump, but everything comes with its pros and cons. You're going to dump a season, you can watch it in a weekend, and then you'll talk about it for a week, for 2 weeks. Whereas with The Mandalorian, you have a week's wait, and throughout that entire week, you're talking about it at school, you're talking about it at work, word of mouth gets around, and before you know it, everybody is watching it. That's why Mandalorian becomes, partly why it's become such a big success, not to take anything away from the quality of the show, but you've got people talking day in, day out about Mandalorian, counting down the hours. I've seen weekly clocks that reset after The Mandalorian comes out, and you could just go on a website and just watch this weekly clock tick down to the next episode of The Mandalorian. And that's a level of excitement that I've not seen since The Force Awakens, where everybody was on edge that this new trilogy was coming back. So this trilogy of TV shows, which hopefully culminates in Thrawn, we know Ahsoka's after him, so hopefully this will be the big payoff moment. Because I remember some of your early shows where we were talking about the potential for Thrawn popping up as a villain in the sequel trilogy, and how everybody was speculating on Thrawn, which never came to pass. But that excitement is still there for Thrawn. He is the reason why Star Wars progressed through the 90s. Without Thrawn, you would never have had the reimagining, the special editions of the original trilogy. I doubt very much we would have touched on the prequel trilogy because there would have been such a long gap between the originals and the prequels that I don't think studios would have been comfortable with the excitement and whether or not it could really push forward. So this show has got a lot to bring to the table, these 3 shows. And I think the finale would have the same attention among people as the movies will, whether it's theatrical or still straight to Disney Plus. I think a lot of people, when that finale eventually rolls around in a few years' time, you'll see a lot of people booking time off work, booking the day after. There will be a lot of buzz around this, treating it like it's going to be a theatrical release. And that's one thing I'm looking forward to.
You know, I while you were talking, Jay, I was thinking we were completely wrong last week when we had a mailbag question asking if we thought Mandalorian had set up some spinoff shows. And we're like, no, I think it was just reaffirmation that they hadn't forgotten about. We were dead wrong because now we've got this Ahsoka show coming and we've got Rangers of the New Republic. I'm not surprised they're doing an Ahsoka series. Like Nick said earlier, and I kind of agreed with what you said. I wasn't a big fan of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, personally. And I'm not going to slam it. I'm not going to just tear my shirt and scream and say that this is something that needs to be fixed. But I wasn't a huge fan of her, mainly because I think I was seeing Rosario Dawson more than I was Ahsoka. I think she was, I don't want to say she was too high a caliber of an actress, but I think because such a big deal was made that she was the one playing Ahsoka, that's all you saw. And that's just for me. So I'm not surprised they're doing an Ahsoka series, though. And I'm assuming, like all of you guys have said, I'm assuming this is her looking for Ezra, because we know now the episode of Mandalorian with Ahsoka, that is before the epilogue of Rebels. So by the time you see Ahsoka in Rebels, she's already met the Mandalorian, met Grogu, and sent them on their mission to find a Jedi. So I'm assuming that's what that story is going to be, and it's going to culminate with that crossover. But Rangers of the New Republic, I'm really, really excited for. I'm really curious because the fact that Filoni and Favreau are doing all 3 of these shows concurrently, and I mean they're breaking themselves off. They don't get a break. Like they're just constantly working, and it's paying off. So I've never been more excited for a Star Wars television show in my life. I was excited for Mandalorian, and I'm excited for Obi-Wan, but I'm excited for this 3-way crossover because it's something that you've only ever seen these crossovers like this in the comics, and I think it's a testament. There could be an argument made that the trilogy format for Star Wars is dead, that there's no point in doing trilogies anymore. I mean, obviously the MCU has got their own set trilogies, but they're all painted into this overall tapestry of this massive story, and they're still made in a way where you could watch each trilogy individually and still know what's going on, even though there's stuff happening in between. And I think they're starting to realize with Star Wars, the trilogy format's dead. I think they need to. I think they realize they need to start working on stories that we care about, that we want to know more about. So I'm excited for Ahsoka. I'm excited for Rangers of the New Republic, and I'm even more excited for the next one on the list that we're going to be talking about, Andor, coming to Disney Plus in 2022. It's currently shooting in London. We're going to be seeing the return of Cassian Andor, a prequel to Rogue One, maybe how he met K2SO. I'm hoping, because the comic just kind of, it was a flip of a switch, and there he was. So I'm hoping that we see some K2SO and Andor. I'm really excited. Basically, this whole series is based off of that one speech he gave in Rogue One, talking about how him and his friends were volunteering for this mission for Rogue One because of the stuff that they'd done that they weren't proud of, the assassinations, the missions they went on. You know, we even see Cassian, shoot his informant in the back to take off, basically to save his life. But you see that gray area of the Rebel Alliance, and I'm so excited to see that come to the screen, and I want to see those missions. Nick, what do you think of Cassian Andor, of the show Andor coming in 2022?
Well, first things first, I think with the Ahsoka series and Filoni, I think Filoni, they knew they were making the Ahsoka series. So I think when that article popped up about, well, the epilogue in Rebels, that really didn't take place right after, Return of the Jedi. So he knew. And then so with everybody, kind of essentially, a few weeks ago when the Ahsoka film, not film, but show came out, the episode. I am sorry, I cannot talk right now because I'm just giddy. Because look, we got dumped and got told, hey, you don't like all the stuff we did over the last 4 years? Well, hey, guess what? Not only are we giving you more stuff, the stuff you liked, we're giving you now stuff we asked for, and to include, more Mandalorian, spin-offs. But where I was going with this is the Ahsoka Leikus, because everybody was like, well, but the whole Leiku thing about, her things not being long enough. Well, we now know that by the time she gets to where she's going, in where she meets up with Sabine at the end of Rebels, she's probably going to be a little bit older, maybe 2-3 years older, my guess. So her Leikus might still grow. We don't know. But I digress. I just wanted to say my 2 little cents about that. In terms of Andor, this is the other reason why I'm thinking, 2021, we're going to start getting a ramp up. I am telling you this right now. Andor is, in my opinion, one of the few series. It was one of the series that was announced early on, I think about a year or 2 ago, and then we never heard anything about it again. Now, granted, a lot of stuff in the world has happened, but we're now starting to see and hear more stuff. And I am with you, Brian. There's this gray area in the rebellion that, again, which is why to me, from a single standalone story, Rogue One is the best piece of work Disney has done. And the fact that they're going back to a character that a lot of people are saying we like, in Cassian Andor, I think is amazing. I think the fact that Diego Luna is a very well-beloved character and, executive producer, he's done a ton of work. I had no clue how much, the guy is actually a very accomplished filmmaker in Latin America. And I think that's the other reason why, too. And I think Disney's realizing, hey, we need to, I'm not trying to, but they understand there's this whole audience in the entire world that is craving for stories, great stories for people that look and act like them. And Diego Luna is them, and he's an accomplished filmmaker. And, the story of, Cassian Andor being a rebel spy, and the fact that they're talking about this is a spy series, a limited run spy series. And I, for one, am with you. I want to see Alan Tudyk come back and play K2SO, because we were talking a little bit ago about Taika Waititi in comedy. Alan Tudyk in Rogue One, that was probably some of the funniest stuff. And it was just straight up dry humor. He said it with such straight face, for being a computer generated thing. So I'm looking forward to it. I think end of 2021 into the first part of 2022, if you're a Star Wars fan, just, write your boss or whatever, and then just tell your wife or your significant other, I will see you in about 6 months to a year, because you're going to be watching an episode almost every week of something new. That's how quickly this stuff is going to come.
Yeah, I think Andor has some big shoes to fill, because, at this point in 2022, we will have already seen 2 seasons of The Mandalorian that have really blown the expectations out of the water of how great Star Wars television can be with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And so to see a whole new team, I'm sure, you got the same story group. You've got Kathleen Kennedy looking over everything. But I'm hoping that, again, this is going to be the moment where we're going to see can other shows by people besides without the last name Favreau or Filoni continue to develop amazing television? I think, and I just looked up because I was trying to remember, this show was first announced in November of 2018, 2 years ago. And, it was one of those things where I'm sure it would have already been in production earlier this year without coronavirus. But, it was one of those things I kept wondering, is it actually going to happen? And then I was just elated last night watching the sizzle reel, and like they started filming 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we're already seeing some scenes that have already been filmed. We're seeing the sets. I think that at one point they mentioned they have like 200 named characters. Like, this is going to be a huge event, and it's 12 episodes. So it's already a little bit longer than we're used to receiving for our Mandalorian seasons. I think seeing the concept art, I think, like Nick said, you're seeing a spy drama. So again, it's a different flavor to that, buffet. You get to choose what you want to watch. And I think seeing this, and again, Rogue One was so well received, and that would have been then almost, I guess 6 years after Rogue One at this point. So it's had time to keep building up in the fandom, and to get a chance to go back and see this character, how he, like, seeing the Rebel Alliance build up. I know they announced Mon Mothma officially. I hope that we see Bail Organa. I hope we could see maybe a young Leia. Who knows, like seeing K2SO interacting with C-3PO and R2-D2. Like, there's so much potential during this time period, whether it be like a crossover with mentioning events that happened with Rebels. I just cannot wait to see a new take on Star Wars, to see it from a different light, to see how it's going to build up to Rogue One and eventually A New Hope. That's what I'm most excited for.
I have very little to add. Excuse me. After what Steven said, I mean, I'm really excited to see espionage in Star Wars. I'm really excited to see, a darker sort of, a stealthier Star Wars mode. I've barely ever seen stealth used in Star Wars, and secret codes and things, and people, Enigma machine sort of version on Star Wars and things like that. I really want to see as far as we can take it, because Andor, what happens is Andor is going on, I presume, during the height of the Empire, no? So, I want to see him, perhaps there could be like cameos for, like, I don't know, Tarkin or other Moths, some really higher ups. Perhaps they could be like Vader's on that ship or something like that. I'm not saying that he should be a part of the show. I'm just saying that, it could be, in and about what's going on with the Empire. So when I'm, Thrawn maybe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Nick. So perhaps something like, I mean, I'm reading Tarkin, and the book Tarkin, for anybody who hasn't read it, is dealing with a particular sort of incident where there's people trying to strike back at the Empire, and Tarkin has to team up with Vader, sort of thing. Those kinds of missions, those kinds of sort of people where they sort of spin off, and they could be egged on by the Republic or by Andor and the like. He could be recruiting these kinds of people. I want to see those sort of different, guerrilla tactics against the Empire in space, in Star Wars space, no less. Yeah, it's going to be. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential, and it's really. It's been a long time coming, because it has been announced for a long time now. But when we saw that video, if you haven't seen the video where Diego Luna is just talking about everything on set with people there, everything looks so neat. It looks so cool. There was this shot where they just zoomed up a little bit and showed like a tiny little set of like an alleyway or a street with like these like small entrances to houses and stuff. That's the kind of thing, like, hidden alleyways, conversations, and just like, perhaps it's going to be along the same sort of feel of Rogue One, because that was really gritty. So if it's going to be kind of heavy like that and building up to an explosive event, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, touching off what Nick said earlier, talking about the stealth side of things, the closest we've got to stealth in Star Wars is old Alec Guinness skulking around the first Death Star to take the tractor beam down. I remember talking to you guys last week, and I was saying that when I went to see Rogue One, they'd announced this is going to be a war movie. And I was like, yeah, okay, it's going to be as close to a war movie as The Force Awakens, which was a jolly slightly comedy movie. I went into Rogue One with half a bottle of Jack Daniels inside me. And I sobered up pretty quickly when Cassian took out that rebel informant at the beginning, because he was, he had a bad arm, he had a broken arm. He couldn't have got away from those stormtroopers. If they got a hold of him, he would have spilt the beans. He would have told everybody the plans. They would have tortured him. He was weak, so he had to get taken out. And that's not the Rebel Alliance that we've seen. As I mentioned last week, the Rebel Alliance poster boy is Luke Skywalker. When we see anything to do with the Rebel Alliance, it's always through Luke's vision. So it's always innocent, always pure. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is the director is Doug Liman, the guy that did The Bourne Identity. One of the things I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, is more General Draven, the guy that was giving Cassian Andor the nod to kill Galen Erso, to assassinate him. There's going to be a lot in this that could really play in. Now, I know, USEF, you mentioned Thrawn. Now, depending as to how far back in the timeline this is set, if it's set far enough back where Thrawn could be a part of it, that would be great, because it could then link in to the potentially Thrawn being in the Rangers, Ahsoka, and Mandalorian finale. But we know that Thrawn is predominantly all on Lothal, and 3 years before New Hope gets jetted off into the unknown region somewhere with Ezra. So I don't know if we're going to get any Thrawn there. But it is going to be interesting to see the spy, the espionage. Are we going to get a lot of politics involved? We're going to get a lot of Mon Mothma and General Draven, Princess Leia. They've done the Leia and the Tarkin with the movie, and technology's moved on since then. Are they going to fine tweak it and say, okay, we've tweaked the lips a bit more, we've tweaked the eyes a bit more, it looks a little bit better than what it did in the movie. Here they are on stage again. So it's going to be great to see how they go along with the Andor show, because I really wanted to see more of Cassian Andor. Again, like mentioned last week, when you read the novel Rogue One and find out he is part of the CIS, the Confederation of Independent Systems, and that he'd been in this fight since he was 6 years old. He was fighting in the Clone Wars against the Republic and is now fighting to establish the very thing he helped bring down. So it's really going to be interesting to see how far back we go. And, Steve shared the picture of the logo last night, the pictures of all the logos for the shows that were announced. And I love the Andor logo. That's, when you zoom in on it, it looks like it's just scratched metal with the Rebel Phoenix sign. The Rebel Alliance Phoenix sign is the O in Andor. And touching again on what USEF said about you've got this audience, you've got the Latino audience, you've got all of that. You've got Spain, Mexico, where Diego Luna is from. You've got all of these other audiences that can relate and connect to him, so that it brings more people in. And I'm really looking forward to see where they can go with this show, because there's so many dirty and just plain underground tactics that they can employ with this character, because we know this character's done it. It's not going to be something jarring where somebody will say, oh, and I don't like that. That's not what the Rebel Alliance stands for. We've seen him do it. And as you mentioned earlier, the whole lineup of the volunteers at the end of Rogue One, Jin, we're with you on this. We've all done some bad stuff that we're not proud of, but it's in service of restoring the Republic. And of all the shows that's announced, this one is the one show that's, it's not going to be the hardest, I don't think, to pull off, but it's going to be the one that can offer all the new things. With the Ahsoka show, we know we're getting Ahsoka. With the Mandalorian, yes, that was new, but we knew a lot about Mandalorian culture, at least from Legends. And looking at Django and the clones, we get a feel of what Mandalorian was going to be about, whether we were right or wrong on those assumptions, but we had an idea of what it could be about. With the Cassian Andor show, this could be anything. This could be undercover in the field. He could be a lone wolf. He could be with a team. He could be patrolling the halls of a Star Destroyer with a data chip, with a data stick in his hand, and a black Imperial officer. He could be infiltrating the ISB. We have no idea where this could be limitless. And this is one I'm really looking forward to out of all the others. Not just purely because I think it has more to offer in the grand scheme of things as what this man could do. We know Ahsoka's force sensitive. We know what she can do. We know what to expect. Pull out the lightsabers and just wreck stuff. We know Mandalorian now. We know what he's going to do. He's teamed up with Boba. We know they're going to start firing off seismic charges and wrecking stuff. Okay, Raiders of the Republic still up in the air. But this show, Andor, this for me is the series that I'm really looking forward to, because this will be something that's completely new in Star Wars. If we do get some good stealth action, it'll be the first time in Star Wars that we do see some stealth, as I said, aside from Alec Guinness dropping down the tractor beam in the Death Star. I mean, even when Han Solo tried stealth in Return of the Jedi, he stood on a twig and alerted the scout trooper straight away. So this is really going to delve into the underworld, blurring the line between honorable soldier and criminal. So this is something that's really going to intrigue a lot of people.
Yeah, Andor is set for release 2022. She didn't really give any other information other than that. So I think this coming year, 2021, will be the last kind of dull year for Star Wars for a while, if you really think about it, because we get through this next year, season 3 of Mandalorian, and then it's just going to explode from here. So another one that was officially announced that's been in the rumor mill for quite a while. We finally have an official title. And I think I can speak for everybody in this podcast about this one. Obi-Wan Kenobi is finally set to release. It's directed by Deborah Chow. I think they said it was going to be 6 or 8 episodes. It'll be a limited series. Set 10 years after Episode 3, Hayden Christensen is reprising his role of Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader. I guess however you want to look at him. And one thing that caught me off guard with this was Kathleen Kennedy used the phrase, "This will be the rematch of the century." So does this mean we're getting an Obi-Wan versus Vader again, or is this going to be flashbacks or flashbacks, or I mean, what is this going to be? Jay, what do you think, man?
I think both. We'll certainly see Anakin. Hey, certainly see that. But this falls into the discussion that we had a little bit earlier. Now, when you see the original Star Wars movie for the first time, this goes back to before the second film, Empire Strikes Back, came out. Darth Vader was Darth Vader. He had nothing to do with Anakin Skywalker. He killed Anakin Skywalker. He was a fellow pupil. And Vader says the line, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." And so to everybody, it was okay, all right. So that was the last time that they saw each other. We then got to the prequels. Okay, same feeling stand. Okay, that's the last time that they saw each other. But there's a line in Return of the Jedi, which kind of, not necessarily, it doesn't contradict it, but it leaves it open for interpretation from a certain point of view. And it's where Luke and Vader are on Endor in the corridor on Endor, where they're in that corridor and they're talking after Luke gives himself up to the Empire, and he's talking to Vader and he says, "Come with me. There's still good. There's still some good in you." And he turns around and tells his son, "Obi-Wan once thought as you did." When Obi-Wan cut his limbs off and left him burning on the floor? Nah, there had to be another conflict between them. Now, it didn't necessarily mean it had to be a physical conflict, because Obi-Wan has to discover that Anakin is alive. Because as far as we know, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, that's it. He's done. When did Obi-Wan realize that his Padawan was still alive? When did he realize, okay, Vader is Anakin and he's still alive? So you're right. Kathleen Kennedy blatantly stated, this is the rematch. So I think we are going to get Vader going toe-to-toe against Obi-Wan. We obviously know that Obi-Wan doesn't die, but I think in this, Vader will just absolutely obliterate Obi-Wan. It'll be a good fight, but Vader will come out on top, and we'll just leave him in squalor, in agony. So this is something I'm really looking forward to seeing. We all are. This is the big one, because this is the show that brings prequel fans and original trilogy fans together, regardless of what the older generation thought of the prequel trilogy. The one thing everybody comes up with is that Ewan McGregor was flawless. And that final scene in Revenge of the Sith with the two of them, the dialogue, Ewan's dialogue, "You were the chosen one." That whole scene is one of the best scenes in Star Wars history. That entire scene, what it sets up, what it represents, the journey that people have been waiting for 40 years, 30 years to see Vader fall and become encased in armor. That whole moment there is going to be magnified tenfold in this TV show, in this live action series. And I really can't wait. And hopefully as well, when we see Vader, because Kathleen stated that Hayden was reprising his role as Anakin and Vader. So are we going to see Vader unmasked and a burnt, charred up Hayden? Are we going to just see the back of his head? We're going to see the full freight? Are we even going to get a moment where Obi-Wan does an Ahsoka Tano and slice through his helmet and take a chunk out of his helmet so you see part of his face? Now, that would blow people's minds. At that moment, if we see that, it would blow everything else out of the water for me. Seeing burnt Hayden in armor, standing face to face, eye to eye with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan gets beaten, thinks, okay, I'm done with this life. It's over for me. I'm just going to go back to Tatooine and hide out. Because I don't think Vader is going to track him down on Tatooine. It's possible, but I just can't see Vader returning to Tatooine anytime soon. What do you think?
Yeah, could we possibly be getting ready to get that battle damage Vader we always see in video games, or something like that? I mean, you could you put these two up against each other, and the possibilities are endless. Like, we keep talking about that over and over again with a bunch of these series, how the possibilities are endless. With Andor, we could see Leia or 3PO and R2 again. There's so much potential on the table now with every single one of these series. Whether you're excited for it or not, there's potential for every single one of them. And seeing Obi-Wan and Vader go at it again, yeah, man. I mean, even if it's just a battle of the wills through the Force or something along those lines, would be absolutely insane to see, man. I'm so excited for this. I'm wanting Obi-Wan to be a serious. I've said this over and over again. I keep saying I want Obi-Wan to be a serious, like psychological character breakdown of Obi-Wan, with like him finding out Anakin's still alive and that he didn't finish the job correctly, and him dealing with everything that he's gone through in the last 10, 15 years of his life. Satine dying, Qui-Gon dying, losing Anakin, watching Padme die, having to exile himself to Tatooine, the fall of the Jedi Order. There's so much, finding the dead younglings. There's so much that Obi-Wan went through that would break any man, anybody. It would just break them. And I'm so excited to see how far they delve into this. Steven, what do you think?
Yeah, you're not going to announce Hayden Christensen for a cameo. So in my hopes, I mean, I want, Ewan McGregor to have maybe 75, 80% of the story and the screen time, but give Hayden Christensen, 15, 20, 25%. I want to see him, struggling, even though this is Obi-Wan's show. Those two were brothers, throughout the prequels. They come up together, and that's the heartbreaking moment on Mustafar. So I think we need to still see both of these men are struggling with what decisions that Anakin made in Revenge of the Sith. 10 years later, they're still dealing with it. And, when we talk about the confrontation, from 1980 until 2013, 14, we always assumed that Luke and Vader met for the first time face-to-face confrontation on Bespin. And then when Marvel #1 comes out in a couple years ago, Luke and Vader had a confrontation shortly after A New Hope, a lightsaber battle, a very quick one. And so, I think, like we said earlier, I think Nick mentioned how, the Filoni-verse, the Mando-verse, whatever you want to call it, is going to enhance how we view the sequel trilogy, and how Clone Wars enhances how we view the prequel trilogy. I really think, and I can't remember if it was Richard or Brian, whoever said that this is going to connect the prequels to the original trilogy in a way that we've never seen before. I think when you go back and rewatch the entire, like, this is going to really, the Skywalker saga is not over. This is going to enhance it so much that you're going to watch, I know it was filmed in 1976, 77, but you're going to watch Alec Guinness's face when he's talking to Luke about his dad, and you're going to have so much more meaning to that scene. And every time that old Ben Kenobi talks about Anakin, or any time that, like Richard said about Vader talking about how Obi-Wan once thought as you do, those scenes are going to hit you so much harder when we see these two men go face to face, whether it's in person or through the Force. I hope that we get some flashbacks. I think, I want to see Hayden Christensen burned and charred, but I also want to see him, maybe a quick Clone Wars flashback and even bring in a young Ahsoka. There's so much potential here to kind of just show these two guys grew up as brothers, but now they are complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Obi-Wan, once he finds out about Vader, is going to try to bring him back to the light side. He's going to fail. It's only that Luke can do that father-son connection. I cannot wait. I think, it's going to be a dream come true to see these actors come back and take on these roles that they did so well over a decade ago, and to see how it's going to really kind of be one last chance for both of these actors to really hit a home run here.
Yeah. Dream come true. That sums it up really well. Honestly, it is everything you both just said, all three of you. Honestly, it is heartbreak. It is hopes and dreams. It is the whole fraternity which they had, which was so obvious and was so brilliant to see throughout, not just the movies, but the Clone Wars and the books and oh my goodness, like this, and the comics, excuse me. Oh my goodness, this is just we can't, there isn't really much more to say other than it's happening. This is like us delving deeper into the Star Wars. Yeah, this is actually strange, me saying this out loud. The Star Wars? So what? Is the rest of the Star Wars not the Star Wars? Well, yeah, you see, I mean, this is basically, I suppose, the most important part of Star Wars, is it? It's the core, I suppose. I mean, it's really, really important, isn't it? The real, Darth Vader. The fact that Anakin is gone now and Vader is there, exactly as Richard said, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. Well, when did that happen? We're definitely going to see that, and I'm sad already that I'm going to predict this. I'm going to try to make a prediction that it's only going to be one season, and for good reason. Can't really delve too deep into that, can you? You can't be like the Chronicles of Kenobi. Oh, by the way, I preferred the older title when we thought it was just going to be Kenobi. Yeah, I preferred that to Obi-Wan Kenobi. But yeah, anyway, the heartbreak in that if this is an action show, I would prefer it not to be. I prefer it to be, perhaps 1 or 2 out of the 10 episodes to be lightsaber action. Obi-Wan showing us how it's done. I want to see a little bit of I hope the closer we get to it, the closer, the more we hear about it, the more info we'll have. I hope we see Qui-Gon a little bit, or hear his voice, sort of Obi-Wan trying, communing with him a little bit through the Force. Perhaps there's going to be a conversation in there between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon about Anakin or about himself even. Oh my God, like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon talking about Obi-Wan's progression. That's almost, I think that's going to bring tears to my eyes, because seriously, Qui-Gon is just such a figure. He's so strong, man. And then Obi-Wan coming in to sort of become his own Jedi master to a Padawan when he wasn't technically ready. He hadn't even faced the trials yet, and he was already promoted, so to speak, to take care of Anakin off the bat. And we've talked about this before, that Obi-Wan was supposed to be Anakin's leader and guide and so on. Well, sure, he might have been a guiding hand, but he wasn't a father figure. He was more of an older brother, and that's it. That's what happened. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. If it is going to be action intensive, and we're going to see, all of these different events which Obi-Wan goes through, and he traverses a little bit through the galaxy looking for remnants, trying to think about, Should I? Shouldn't I go out there? Is he going to get trapped into something? There's definitely more. There's this trend, and you guys should confirm this for me. I hope we're probably not going to see comics or anything canon already shown to us up until now filmed on live action, are we? I don't think so, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be all new, completely new material. They're not going to be like, oh, in a certain issue where Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meet, we're going to see that reenacted, and then the previous canon is going to be retconned, because this is going to be new. Probably what we're going to see is something that's completely new, something that's completely a new addition. So we're going to get stuff that we probably never even knew happened. That's what I think, right? I mean, what do you guys think?
I tell you one thing that I think. Now, we all know that Qui-Gon's going to be popping back in. You ever thought about Qui-Gon speaking to Vader?
Cool. Oh.
Vader's in his meditation chamber, and Qui-Gon appears through the Force. Not physically, because we know that Qui-Gon learned that a little bit, gradually learned that process. But eventually Qui-Gon materializes, because we read it in a certain point of view, where Qui-Gon talks to Obi-Wan after Luke races back home to the farm in the land speeder. So we know that Qui-Gon physically materializes eventually, but it would be, how great would it be, how heartbreaking would it be for Qui-Gon to manifest in the Force in front of Vader while Vader's in his meditation chamber?
Man, if we get Vader, seriously, like Vader meditating back, if you guys read Lords of the Sith, I am so lucky. Like, I think I'm just taking these examples from stuff which I've read, and I haven't read a lot. If you read Lords of the Sith and you see those moments in that book where Vader is being taunted by memories of his past, and you see those in comics as well, and you see these things where Padme shows up in his mind, and then Darth Sidious just stares him down. I do not think we're going to get Sidious in this show. I think this is going to be really, like, he's not going to be showed. I don't think so. But if we see Vader tormented by Padme and Qui-Gon, and then him trying to push those out and kill Anakin, oh my God. Oh,
I think in regards to Sidious, it'll be a little bit like the beginning of Rebels, season 1 of Rebels, where you see Vader on a hologram talking to the Grand Inquisitor. If you do see Sidious, it'll either be the very end when Vader goes back to the Empire, and then maybe then you'll see Sidious as they walk off together. But I don't think Sidious will play a big role here. This, I think, is going to be, hopefully, it's going to be a more of a personal.
Yeah, he's going to be looming. Sidious is going to be looming. This is going to be very personal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If they get Ian McDiarmid on the payroll and gives some Sidious, then great. I'm not going to reject that, but I think seeing Sidious will probably be something left for the end. So when the show ends, because it's only a limited series, so it's going to be one series. It's unlikely to go more than that. You're going to have the end showing Obi-Wan settled in his decision where he is at that point in time, and you're going to see Vader, hopefully next to Sidious, settled in his mind, at least for the time being, where he is in that point in time. I don't think we'll see much of Sidious at all. It might just be at the very end of the show, just to affirm that position that Vader has thrown his lot in with the dark side for the time being.
So the pure irony is when we knew this was announced, and they were talking about, oh, this was supposed to start. It was actually, people need to remember, it was actually supposed to start filming this year. And even before the pandemic happened, there were issues in regards to the script, and essentially production, even before the pandemic happened, got shut down. So there were rumblings that this thing was never going to get off the ground. And this is of all the shows or movies that fans have been clamoring for, this is the one. Like when they were talking about Star Wars, standalone Star Wars films, Rogue One was the one that they announced Rogue One, and then like in a few years we're going to announce our 2 other standalone films. Which, by the way, that's the thing people forget, is that when they announced the new films, we were actually supposed to get the sequels and 3 standalones, and because of excuse me, because of the unfortunateness of, the box office debacle that was Solo. Not that Solo was a bad film, because obviously it wasn't, because of what we'll be talking about in a little bit. The third standalone movie, which a lot of people thought was going to be Obi-Wan, got canceled. And then like, well, we'll maybe make it into a limited release series, because they knew, hey, Disney Plus is coming. And then nothing came, and we're finally getting it. And so when they said it's going to take place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, I was like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. And then when they announced, hey, Hayden Christensen's coming back as Anakin Skywalker, it's like, wow, that's really something. I was like, well, how are they going to pull this off? Because then I was like, well, wait a second. Because I think the other thing, too, is people need to remember the person who's doing the Obi-Wan series is Deborah Chow. Deborah Chow has worked with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And I'm not trying to say we're in the Filoni-verse and Mando-verse, but here is something I want to tell you guys. And I want to tell our audience is, if you think about it, Kathy Kennedy said George Lucas is essentially the Yoda of Star Wars. She called him that. Well, if Lucas is Yoda, and what would that make Kathy Kennedy? Qui-Gon? No. Obi-Wan? No. Yaddle? I don't know. I'm thinking of people on the council. But who's the one person that we could probably say Filoni is? Filoni is either Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon. And the reason I say that, with all, joking aside, is because he gets it. He has essentially now created essentially the universe that a lot of the series we are pumped to be in and pumped to have are coming to fruition. Because Obi-Wan is taking place, as I mentioned, 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. That's only a few years before Rebels, the first season of Rebels happens. So they have to somehow connect that to get to no, USEF. Kathy is not Rey. So, but they actually have to connect how Obi-Wan winds up still meeting Thrawn and still being Maul, and still battling Maul, and still has the force power to battle Maul, but essentially get to where we see him at the end of Rebels and at the beginning of A New Hope. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking forward to. And the one line that I think everybody is kind of overlooking is he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. So he knew when he left at the end of episode 3, he had an inkling that Anakin was still alive. He wasn't sure, but he had an inkling. So we know at some point between episode 3 and episode 4, they had another encounter. And so I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for. I'm just kind of curious how this encounter is going to wind up being. And I'll be honest, I'm excited for it because this thing is coming out in 2022. And as I mentioned, guess what? 2022, we're getting Andor, we're getting Obi-Wan, we'll get maybe the third or we'll get the 4th season of Mando, and maybe we'll get season 1 and 2 of Ahsoka, and not season 1 of Ahsoka and season 1 of Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah, man, there's a lot coming down the line. And it's not just some of the live action stuff either. I think we've got two more live action things to talk about, but there's a lot coming in the way of animation too. And I think the biggest thing animation wise everybody's excited about is the Bad Batch, the spinoff from the Clone Wars, that was kind of set up in season 7 of Clone Wars. When Kirsty and I sat down and finally watched season 7 of Clone Wars, we got to the Bad Batch, and I know there were some people that weren't huge on the team and wasn't huge on that story arc. Kirsty and I loved that story arc. Loved the characters, loved their individual talents and the way they worked together, and some of the humor that was surrounding that group. So when they announced this Bad Batch series, I sent it to Kirsty on Messenger, and she lost it. She got so excited, just as excited as I am. And we finally got our first look at it at this Disney Investors Call. We got a trailer for it finally, and found out it is set for release early next year. So, USEF, man, what did you think of this this Bad Batch? I know, and the reason I'm asking you, I'm singling you out because I know you're not completely caught up on Clone Wars yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was kind of wanting to see what your opinion was of this, knowing that it's a spinoff of Clone Wars, but kind of what you thought of this series.
I'm waiting for it to be fun, like genuine fun. So here's my beef with the Clone Wars. So far, I'm halfway through season 4 at the moment. First 2 seasons were really boring, and the animation is off. It's a different feel of animation. I know it's old, but there's some other old stuff which feels good. And I had some beef with the way the characters, were sort of presented. The voice acting is a little bit off and so on. But the more I progress into it, season 3 and 4, everything's much better. You can tell they sort of, everybody's kicked it up a notch. And I've seen some previews of season 6 and season 7 when they were coming out, and that's one of the things which made me sure that I really have to watch Clone Wars. I just never got around to it. I'm really excited for this new show. Not only does the animation seem cool, but I want a fun Star Wars show. Some of those episodes in season 2, just 1 or 2 of them were like giving you real hope. And when it was really intense with the stormtroopers, and when they were sort of having the dialogue with themselves, and there was a traitor amongst them, and then in season 4, season 3 actually, when we're looking at sort of some of the bonds formed between, like, Ahsoka's doing this with, and she's talking to some stormtroopers about, deploying in a different way, and Anakin proves his mettle, and he shows them this is how to do it, and they're all leading by, they're sort of following their leader, fearless leader. Anakin Skywalker's earned his reputation, but Bad Batch seems to be a completely different way. It seems to be a completely different thing. You can go ahead and talk about it. Fine, it's not a problem for me if you say something and you, there's no spoilers. Obviously I'm the one who's behind. But if you really, I'd like to ask a few questions about Bad Batch. Are they set up to being the sort of like Suicide Squad, or are they set up to being more of a elite task force Delta 6 sort of thing? SEAL Team 6. I'm not entirely sure. And are they obviously the difference is going to be in how fun it is. You ever played that video game Mercenaries 2? Mercenaries 2, it was complete crap as a game. The physics was off. It wasn't an army game by any means, but it was fun as hell. You dropped down from the air and into anywhere. You just sort of you kicked trucks with your leg, man, out of the way. And it was just a fun game. So I'm looking for a show that's gonna, just like, yeah, this is fun Star Wars. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and this will deliver it, because the game that you're referring to, the Mercenaries 2, the Bad Batch is the Mercenaries.
Fantastic.
What you're talking about in that game, I'm familiar with the game. That I know Brian touched on earlier, when the Bad Batch arc started in Clone Wars, the final season. I think the biggest problem that it had is that was the final series. If that Bad Batch arc was put 2 seasons back, then I don't think it would have been a problem. But because we only had a limited number of episodes, 12 episodes, I just think that a lot of people was like, yeah, okay, great, Bad Batch, but we really want to see a bit more of Anakin and Obi-Wan, because this is the final outing. As far as we were concerned, that was going to be, at least in the Clone Wars, that was going to be it. But what you just said there about mercenaries kicking trucks over. Now, I know you said you're not bothered if something's spoiled. I'm not going to spoil anything necessarily, but there is a moment in the Bad Batch episodes where one of the clones, the big heavy one, pushes a dropship to one side to get another clone out from underneath. So it has that same sort of physics. Now, as to the Bad Batch itself, yeah, they are sort of the Suicide Squad. They are sort of the, I don't know if elite squad would be the right way to put it. They certainly are good at what they do, but they're not uniform in any way, shape, or form. Like the rest of the clones, these all have completely separate identities. Now, I know the clones have their identity. You've got Fives, you've got Heavy, you've got Echo, Wolf, McGregor, but they're all still very similar. These guys are completely off the chart. Now, seeing what we saw in the season 2 episode of Mandalorian, The Siege, where we've got those tank-bred creatures, because I don't really know what they are. None of us really know what they are yet. Those tank-bred humanoids, and they need Grogu's blood. I would like to see whether or not the Bad Batch have become mutated because they tried this experiment already. Did they try and infuse that clone tank with the Force? And is that what caused their mutations? Because this clone lifts and just pushes one of the Ark dropship, the troop dropship from Attack of the Clones, where they drop all the Jedi's down on Geonosis and all the rest of the troops. He picks one up and moves it on his own. So I'd like to see if they can. I would be interested to see if they factor in the Force imbuing of these clones to see if it worked. It didn't really work. They can't control the Force, but they do display some insanely good talents.
Yeah, when this was announced a couple months ago, and first of all, I'm glad how fast it's moving along. It must have been in production earlier. I was not the most excited. I do enjoy the Clone Wars and Rebels, of course, but seeing the sizzle reel last night, I got really excited. It really built up my anticipation. I think part of it was a couple of things. I think, I love the Clone Wars style, and Rebels is a different type of art style. So I was very excited. Like, this looks like a direct sequel to Clone Wars. Like, it looks like it's going to pick up, hopefully, with Order 66 from their point of view, because, we saw Palpatine giving his speech. And, like, just the fact that they revealed as much as they did, like, we're seeing these guys in action. We are seeing Palpatine. We're seeing Tarkin. We saw Fennec Shand. And, like, they better get Ming-Na Wen back to voice her, because, like, the fact that you are building up these characters live action with Mandalorian, and now you're seeing her origin story, if you will, from way back at the end of the Clone Wars. I think it's going to bring in so much potential to, like, bring in these crossovers. And so if you're already showing these characters in a sizzle reel, not even a trailer, it makes me wonder who they're saving. Would I love to see Ashley Eckstein back as Ahsoka and, hearing Rex again at this time, what they're doing right after we saw them at the Siege of Mandalore? Of course I would. You can let Rosario Dawson continue to play her live action in the future, and there's still a lot of story that Ashley Eckstein could voice for this time period. I think, we saw 7 seasons over a 3-year war. So I don't know how long of a game plan they have for Bad Batch, but I think there's so much potential to see. This is the buildup of the Empire. And from what the trailer showed, the sizzle reel showed, these guys, they don't seem to be in line with the clones that were, had the chip in their head with Order 66. So maybe they're going to be a little bit espionage as well, kind of like Andor. Maybe they're the ones kind of going undercover to blend in with the stormtroopers. Maybe they're trying to break up some of these early, like, it went from, the original Republic to the Empire overnight. And so, like, to see how that early days of the Empire focused in, maybe they'll do some time jumps. We'll see different time periods during that 19-year period between episode 3 and 4. I'm more excited for it now after seeing the sizzle reel last night.
Yeah, it almost feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's just me, it kind of feels like this series is kind of the gap bridge between Clone Wars and Rebels. We saw Tarkin, and we see a lot of the Empire, obviously. We saw that clip in the sizzle reel of Palpatine, saying it'll be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. It really does seem like this will be the bridge series between those two. Nick, what do you think?
I'm at 100% agree with what you said. I think, we're flushing out essentially the heyday of the Empire. I mean, we got that with Rogue One a little bit. We got that with Rebels, but from the Rebel point of view. Bad Batch, like I mentioned, again, we're in the Filoni verse, the Filoni Favreau verse, and I'm not trying to say that as a bad thing. I think we're all in agreement. What Dave Filoni has done and what now Jon Favreau is doing is they understand you can tell amazing stories and connect everything and have everything loosely connected. And I love what Steven said. I love the fact that in that one sizzle reel, and it's coming up quick. I guarantee you this series, the Bad Batch series, the first season, if it might come out in February, I don't know. My guess, it's probably going to be a spring release, so probably right after Falcon and Winter Soldier come out. So probably about April, May. I think that's about the same time season 7 of Clone Wars came out, to kind of give us, hey, we got a new series coming out. And, because, High Republic's coming out in January, but Bad Batch to me, it's going to be a very interesting way to watch the rise of the Empire, but from the Empire point of view.
Yeah, I'm real excited about Bad Batch. I can't wait to see where this is going to end up going. And this is one that we found out. I mean, what? When did we find out about this? Summer? I think it was over the summer we found out about Bad Batch. And finally seeing something of this is great, man. And even the production value of that sizzle reel we saw looks like it's going right along with season 7 of Clone Wars. And so I'm really excited for this. It's going to be cool to see what these characters get put through and where they end up going and whatnot. So very, very excited about Bad Batch. One that was kind of a surprise, and I don't think it's, don't get me wrong, this is one that I personally kind of feel like is a little bit of a throwaway thing. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but Star Wars Visions is a Disney Plus series that's coming. It'll be a series of short films animated, but they're going to be animated with the Japanese anime style. So, Jay, what do you think about this, man?
Well, have they stated it's going to be films? I knew it was Disney's. I knew it was going to be shorts, but is it actually going to be short films or just actual shorts?
I think they said short films. Hang on, let me look at this. This says Star Wars Visions presenting all new creative takes on the galaxy far, far away. Star Wars Visions will be a series of animated short films celebrating Star Wars through the lens of the world's best anime creators. The anthology creation will bring 10 fantastic visions from several of the leading Japanese anime studios, offering a fresh and diverse cultural perspective to Star Wars.
Okay, great. All right. So, look, anime is massive. In the West, it's been big since Pokemon came through. All right. Now, okay, I'm not an anime fan. I don't necessarily dislike anime. It's just I've not seen something in anime that I've gone, that's really good. Now, I do like the Galaxy of Adventures, those little shorts, and they are very much in a sort of anime style. Also, as well, the fan-made TIE Fighter anime show, that 5-minute anime you can find on YouTube. Have you guys all seen that? The 5-minute animated show TIE Fighter. That would be, amazing. They got a great little soundtrack to it. You're seeing it's very much reminiscent of cartoons of the 1980s. All right, so the 1980s, early 1990s, before images and cartoons started to change. It was very much part of my childhood, and Nick as well. Nick's a little bit older than me, so he will remember those 80s cartoons. So aside from what you've just read out there, Brian, I don't think there's much else that they've really said about this new show. So it's going to be intriguing to see, first of all, where are they going to set these? Are they going to scatter them so there'll be a bit on each individual era of Star Wars? Are they going to look and maybe take inspiration from a film? Are they going to take Rey, for example? Are they going to show Rey between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, where she trains with Leia? Are they going to expand on that? That would be great to see. I would like to see that in anime. I think it'll also, much like the Clone Wars, we said this earlier, we all did. I think Nick as well had reiterated this point, much like the Clone Wars smoothed over a couple of cracks that a lot of people had to begin with the prequels. This could effectively do the same. If we see more of what goes on between the scenes on these movies, and then they bring that out into a whole animated movie, or is it just going to be background characters? Are we going to, for example, a certain point of view, we get all the stories, but from the perspective of the characters in the background? Is it going to be something like that? So it's interesting to see where they go with it. It's, as you said, looking at everything that was announced, this was the one I think that had the least sort of hype, but at the same time that can bring the best reward because you have low expectations set for it. So I guess we'll have to see more news when it comes to closer to the release date.
Yeah, I agree with what Richard said. I personally have not, had a lot of experience watching anime, but I'm excited for the chance that Star Wars, because I watch all Star Wars, is going to introduce me to a new medium, and who knows what that could lead to. So my only really kind of thought about this one when I first heard it yesterday was, if you remember years ago, 2003 or 4, when The Matrix was coming out with their sequels, and they had the Animatrix, and they gave, I think maybe it was 6 or 8 short, maybe 5-10 minute animated, and some of them were anime, and it just was a way to expand the universe. Some of them revealed more than others, and some of them were just short little stories. And so I hope we get a mixture of that. I hope we get some that are more canon heavy. I hope some are just more fun, more, we've had so much inspiration, especially with the Ahsoka episode this year, with that Japanese style that Lucas was famous for. So I'm excited for a different type of Star Wars, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else it could bring and maybe other styles in the future besides anime.
I mean, I don't mean to be too cynical here. Disney is obviously trying to push this into different markets. I'm pretty sure that amongst their content creators and their creatives, they've had some concept art put out there, and they really like where it's going. Personally, I'm really excited for it. I love anime. Maybe not love anime. I really, really like anime. I love watching it. Like Richard, I don't see any particular stories in there that I just love, but I love watching it. It's fantastic. It adds a whole different dimension to any story. So when I do see films that I like, Attack on Titan is cool. Okay, if anybody's not that into anime, any of our listeners or any of you guys, I highly recommend you watch the Batman Ninja movie. There's an animated Batman movie that is, he gets transported
I did see that.
Joker. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Very, very, very good.
Yeah, exactly. That is anime. So when Joker transports them with a time traveling device back to 14th century Japan or something, medieval Japan, I think, perhaps not 14th century, even before that, feudal Japan, and it all of a sudden just switches to anime. Watch that. It's fantastic. I think Star Wars will be along that field. It won't be. I don't think they'll do Star Wars with like Naruto's running, where your arms are behind you and you're sprinting ahead and the whole world zooms past you. I don't think they'll do that. It won't. The point of this isn't going to be comical. The point of this is going to be adding a dimension to what lightsabers could do, to what blaster fire could look like, to what explosions feel like, to how the force resonates within these, within this physics, within this display. Because what anime is really good at that other animation styles isn't, anime really shows emotions and emotions in actions really well. That's what actually anime is gifted with. It's sort of inherently emotional. Whenever we see new animated shows. You always understand the feel of the show based on how the animation is set up. So if you watched Samurai Jack back in 2000s when it first came out on Cartoon Network, and then you saw the last season when Tarkovsky came out with the sort of reprieve, the finale of it, you saw the animation shift. It was the same, but it was just a little bit more serious, but it was still dark. It kept the dark side of it, I suppose. When you see Castlevania, that's something else entirely. You're watching a show about vampires, about the vampire Dracula, and you're watching it about medieval Transylvania getting ripped to shreds. So, Dark Ages all the way. So it is a dark animation. You don't see the sun, I don't think, at all in the entire show. But yeah, the thing is that when you look at this potential, like, what is this going to show us for Star Wars? Not only is it adding another frontier to how you can think about Star Wars, but this is why it's animated shorts. I'm sure it's going to be canon, but I'm also sure that it's not meant to be Mando or Rogue One or Squadrons or anything like this at all. It's just meant to be fun, captivating. This is Star Wars. This is a direction which Star Wars has, which has expanded, and definitely this is experimental. I don't know of any other show out there or network out there or production that's done this, that's had a franchise of whatever it could be or a theme or anything, and then just gone rogue completely to sort of try this new style, which is completely different to what it's been doing already. I don't know of anything. If you guys know anything, shout out. But yeah, this is pretty cool. It's nifty. This is what I call this. It's nifty. It's not amazing. It's not necessarily something. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I want to see what's going on. I mean, I don't need to see it tomorrow. I'm not that excited for it. It's nowhere near excitement level as Obi-Wan Kenobi or Acolyte for that matter. I'm really excited for Acolyte. But yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think, because anime is growing a lot because of the flexible stories, because anything can happen. Physics is there's such a question mark over it. There's so much depth to it. So much can happen. So if you put Star Wars physics and the Force and lightsabers and huge starfighters and the landscapes into anime, you definitely get a very, very, very intriguing mix. And probably somebody's been saying exactly these words, only 100 times more emphatic back there inside their creative studios. And he's probably been saying that for a long time too. So he's finally got his wish, whoever that person is. They've said yes, so they're going to do a couple of animated shorts. And he's probably done one or two or even three of them and done a demo of them. And if those get leaked, which I think they might, be prepared to see some ass kicking. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to be very physical. It's going to be very sort of violent, fighting, aggressive, that sort of thing. That is what anime is for.
So I grew up on some very old anime. I'm not into any of the new stuff, but some of you might know this. In case some of you do not know, the original Transformers series was a Japanese animated movie. The original G.I. Joe series was Japanese anime. There was a cartoon animated movie called Transformers the Movie. And to this day, I still say it's one of the movies that ruined my childhood because Optimus Prime died. And fun fact about that is that when Optimus Prime died, pretty much about 5-6 months later, they did a G.I. Joe animated movie. And the main character, Hawkeye, was actually supposed to die in that movie. And Hawkeye's brother, essentially wound up getting sent off somewhere. And at the end of the movie, they were like, hey, just want to let you know, Hawkeye survived. And the reason, and that was even in the original film, they actually changed it because people like me, when we saw Transformers, got upset. Well, my parents got upset, not my parents, but parents got upset. They wrote the studio and they're like, okay, we got to change this, blah blah blah. So you had Transformers, you had GI Joe, you had Robotech, which was really one of the first major forays for Americans into Japanese animation, because Robotech was just, they combined 3 loosely based separate Japanese animated stories into one big story to bring to America. And then you had Voltron. So I don't know a lot of the new stuff. I am aware of the old stuff that I grew up on, and I grew up on that because my older brothers watched that, and I was like, okay, well, I'll watch it. In terms of these animated shorts, I'll be honest, I might watch them just because they're there and be like, okay, I'll watch them. But very similar to Star Wars Resistance, if I don't watch it, I'm not going to be like upset about it. So, if something catches my eye, like maybe there's a short story that's set in the High Republic, or a short story that's set in the Old Republic, or they can do something more along the seedy sides of the Galactic Empire, or the Republic, or whatever, during the transition phase. I think that'd be cool. I think this is a way for them to actually just kind of get their feet wet and let other potential storytellers, as you mentioned, get their voice in the Star Wars universe. I'm not a huge, like I mentioned, I'm just not a huge anime fan, so I couldn't tell you. I can tell you this: well, I've been walking up and down stairs, for the last 15 minutes, with my camera off. It's just because I'm trying, get my kids ready for bed and help my wife. And my son is, we went from watching, as I mentioned, we're in the Filoniverse right now. And I can tell you right now, we're smack dab in the Filoniverse, because my son we watched Mando a little while ago, and it's almost 10 o'clock at night, and he's in the midst of season 2 of Rebels. And the last thing I saw was Ahsoka and Rex, being reunited again, and I was like, oh. So sorry, I because as Stephen was talking about young things going and everything, young fans, and that's where my family's at. So, but with that said, I know we're going to go into Acolyte a little bit, so I'm going to just push this forward, because I can hear my wife talking about trying to get my kids to bed. I'm absolutely looking forward to this show. I think this show is going to be amazing, and it's going to be awesome. And the fact that it's going to be from an antagonist point of view looks phenomenal. But with that said, everybody, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I have to help my wife get my kids to bed.
No, you're good, man. Thanks for being on tonight, brother.
Hey, have a good night, y'all.
Bye, Nick.
Yeah, bye, Nick. Take care, man.
Yeah, guys. So let's get into Acolyte some, because this is one that I think took everybody by surprise. We knew Leslie Headland was working on a series, or on a project, I should say, for Lucasfilm, but nobody had any idea what it was. But now we know it is called The Acolyte. It's a Disney Plus series. It will be developed by Leslie Headland and set in the final days of the High Republic. USEF, I know you're excited for the High Republic stuff, man. Are you excited for this series, man?
I'm so excited. Seriously, is exactly what Nick just said. The fact that you're seeing it from an antagonist's point of view. I've been screaming this from the top of my lungs. I've bored my fans with this. I've bored the audience with this. I am just, I love the villains, man. I love the villains. I love the Force so much. By the way, I have to give a huge shout out to a Facebook group which has over 10,000 members, more than half of which are genuinely active. The New Galactic Empire. So this Facebook group is basically They have a hierarchy, and they are the Sith. So that's the thing. That's this group where you do these tasks. They're not physical tasks. I mean, some of them are actually if you're like into workshop and stuff. So they've got these different branches, and you apply to each branch, and then there's someone accepting applications, and they look at what you bring to the table. If you're good at writing, if you're good at speaking, if you're good at doing this, if you're good at doing that, and then they do these like all out activities, kind of like a D&D sort of game, things like that. I just need to give a shout out to them because this is so cool. It's such a deep Star Wars thing. And then the more I read into they prepare everything that's regarding Sith and dark side and the Force and even Jedi, because they sort of look at both sides of the coin, and they try to discuss all the different philosophies of it, and they try to make sure that you understand that you can relate this to your life, not just anger wise. Obviously, you try to vent out and make sure that you can strategically accomplish any goal you want to. And it's such a cool concept that when I now look at this show coming out, Acolyte, which is, so for those of you who don't know what the word Acolyte means, it is the first rank when you go into the Sith Order. It is the very first rank, and you go into that sort of, you're kind of like a Padawan, I suppose, not a youngling. You're sort of pledging yourself. When you're accepted to be an acolyte is a student to a master, and then you sort of choose. You've already supposedly been chosen into a certain branch within the Sith, supposedly. The canon of that may change a little bit, but the point is that I am all for seeing more of the Force, seeing more of passion, seeing more of, I said this before 2 episodes ago, or like I think during our intro video. I am really, really, really excited to look at the Force and all its aspects. What makes it easier, quote unquote, easier for you to be so strong with the Force that you turn to the dark side rather than the light? Is it because it's an explosion of passion? Is it because it's easier to vent out and be angry than it is to control it and harness it and be wise? When we hear of Obi-Wan and Yoda, basically, they never, ever even had an inkling of turning to the dark side because they simply don't have the urge to do anything with it. A lot of what people criticize the Sith for in Star Wars is because they don't get the chance to see what the Sith use their power for. Do you know what I mean? Like, if some sort of billionaire dictator warmonger, what does he want? He wants more money and he wants power because he wants to feel like he's in control of other people's lives. That's the villain. That's his motive. So what is the motive of the Sith? Well, you have so many different angles. You have so many. You have the passion exuding from you that you're using it to push the Force, this power that you have all around you. And that gives you not just pleasure, it gives you this immense sort of purpose that you are forcing this. You are forcing this power onto others. They either submit to you or you crush them. And then there's other Sith who actually aren't violent. And there's other Sith who are extremely, like Darth Bane, sort of, they have a struggle. They have a struggle they're going through, and they have these philosophies that dawn on them. And there's Sith masters who turn to the light, and then they turn back to the dark, and then they turn back to the light. And there's this whole journey there. Yeah, I can go on this for ages, man. Acolyte, I'm really excited to see exactly what it's about and how it goes through all this. Perhaps it's not going to go through everything I just mentioned. What I just said, I mean, that's way too much. Like, I just described a whole entire like encyclopedia of things to look into. But I'm really excited to, not just for the all of the High Republic and High Republic, Old Republic, that sort of feel which we've seen before. I want to see more of it, and I want to see a journey, mind you, from start, through milestones. I want to see what that might look like.
Yeah, Yusuf, you have a lot of background on this, and I want to hear more about it because I think there's so much more about the Sith that is going to come into the light here. I think what I'm most excited about is a couple of things. We talked earlier in the show how by the time we get to 2022, I feel like this is going to be the target time frame, maybe late 2022. I feel like at that point, Star Wars is going to be looking a lot like how Marvel's looking next year with, different shows, each kind of following after the next one. So like, how amazing would it be to have an Ahsoka show and then follow it up by the Acolyte, seeing two completely different sides of the spectrum of
Exactly. Exactly.
and
That would be perfect.
that's what I'm hoping. That would be amazing to kind of go from one to the other. And I'm so excited because at this point, if this is a maybe late 2022 show, at that point, we're going to have at least 3, 4, 5, maybe High Republic adult novels and a series of young adult. And, most of these books from what we've seen in the advertisements have been, we're going to focus on the Jedi at their height. They don't know that the Sith are still out there, underground hiding. And so I don't expect a lot of Sith mentions or Acolyte mentions, whatever, in the High Republic, whether it be in the comics or the novels or the kids' books. But I think that this is going to be a perfect time because the High Republic's now going to be about a year and a half old. It's going to hopefully kind of keep growing, getting momentum. And then you put out this show. So even if you missed the first couple of books the year before, it's a perfect time to still be able to quickly jump on the bandwagon because you're looking at this as, it says the end of the High Republic. So I'm very excited. And if it didn't say it yesterday, I don't think, but I remember at one point reading, I think it's going to be a female-led show. So I'm hoping that in terms of actress, I really would love to see a female lead from the dark side point of view, because that's one thing that Star Wars, in my opinion, hasn't had a lot of female villains. So to follow the protagonist of someone that's a female really falling to the dark side, really dealing with that struggle, and hopefully coming into contact with someone that she could fight, I would love to see that. I'm very excited for the Acolyte and the opportunities it has to build up the promotional side of the publishing side, excuse me. So hopefully getting more people to read and see what's coming in the High Republic era.
Okay, so as we were talking earlier, just before we start to record the stream, and again, as Stephen has just mentioned, this is set towards the end of the High Republic era. And yeah, I read the same, that it's supposed to be a female lead. Now, also as well, which I'd mentioned previously, which USEF has just mentioned, Acolyte is the Sith equivalent of a Padawan. So although this show is going to be called The Acolyte, I'm wondering if the female lead, is she the Acolyte or is she the Master? Because as we're coming in, to the end of the High Republic, we're now laying the groundwork for episode 1. So I'm hopeful that the Acolyte is going to be Darth Plagueis. And then as the show progresses, or the film, as this new content progresses, are we going to end off then seeing a young Palpatine come into the show to bridge that gap? And that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing.
You guys, your guys' analysis just it floors me every time. I can't believe how awesome you guys, like the way you think is just completely like mind-boggling. I didn't even think of that as a possibility. Wow, man, that sounds unbelievable.
Well, you can see how they stitch in. I mean, we've got the High Republic. I don't know whether or not they ever plan to touch on the Old Republic, which is thousands of years before. But we've got the High Republic, and I'd mentioned this last week. I'm not sure if it was on stream or off stream, but the High Republic is only set 200 years before Episode 1. Now, the Legends novels, they go up to 50 years after the Battle of Yavin. So that's, a quarter of that time. You then have comics that jump forward 100 years, but we're talking 200 years between the High Republic starting. Now, when's the tipping point? When does it come to an end? Because this show could be set 50 years before Episode 1. It could be set 100 years before Episode 1. The High Republic's going to start 200 years prior to Episode 1. Where's the peak? Where's the downfall? Where does that come into it? How far off are we going? And I think the Acolyte, in this case, we got the lead, which all we know is reported to be a female. I'm hoping this female will be the Master. All right, this is going to be the Sith Lord, the Sith Master, the one that's in charge. All right, because we've got Palpatine, we've had a man in charge. I want to see a woman in charge. We've had the female Jedi have her, give the girls what they've been waiting for all this time. Let's see a female version, not an underling, a female, an empress sitting on the Sith throne. this girl is going to own her position, and I'd like to see her then train the underlings. And I'm hoping the Acolyte itself is Darth Plagueis, and then that will be something we've all seen the trailers for all these different shows, new shows and old shows. Like, look at this current season of Mandalorian. You go back and watch the trailer. The trailer was showing footage from the first few episodes. We'd been blind going into these several last episodes, and they did the same with the Clone Wars until they gave I think the last 2 episodes of the Clone Wars had its own separate trailer showing Ahsoka standing on that computer terminal. But Lucasfilm are very clever how they market, how they either cut trailers and how they market their products. Although this show is called The Acolyte, I think in this sense, The Acolyte is Darth Plagueis. And then his female master is going to be the one that's carrying the show. He's going to be the learner. And then hopefully it's going to get to a point within the show. Hopefully it does great numbers. It gets a lot of momentum behind it. We get a few seasons out of it. But then it's going to come to a point where he has to wrest the mantle of the Dark Lord for himself. He's going to have to strike down his leader. Then he takes on a Padawan or an Acolyte. And that then, would it be Palpatine? Would he have a number of Acolytes before Palpatine? I don't know. But that's something I'm really looking forward to, because this is still a story that has not yet been told. We had the Legends novel, Darth Plagueis. That's obviously been put into the Legends brackets. So we still have this massive moment from the movies as well. We ever heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And Palpatine clues Anakin in. This is the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Nothing else was said in canon on that moment. Nothing happened in the sequel trilogy to bring some essence of Darth Plagueis. Nothing at all. So it would be really nice to see this area, this character, finally fleshed out and canonized in live action. With the first appearance, it would be great to see him. I don't know if it's going to retain the Legends character. So are we going to see Darth Plagueis as he appeared in Legends? Is he still going to be a moon? Or is he going to be somebody else? Is it going to be a she? Is it going to be something completely crazy? I don't know. But I'm hoping we get to see the Acolyte as being Darth Plagueis and his journey under his master, his empress, and then finally wrest power for himself as the man who continues to add the groundwork for the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a cool show. I mean, especially considering if you read the description on StarWars.com, it says Leslie Headland, Emmy Award nominated creator of the mind-bending series Russian Doll, which I've never seen Russian Doll, but Kirsty said that her dad really enjoyed it, said it was really, really good. Brings a new Star Wars series to Disney Plus with The Acolyte. The Acolyte is a mystery thriller that will take the audience into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. So, yeah, man, I'm a mystery thriller. Bring it on. And it seems like with all of these series, we used to talk about how Marvel was doing these different genre of films. You had the heist film with Ant-Man and the political thriller with Captain America Winter Soldier and stuff like that. And it seems like we're starting to get into the same kind of thing with Star Wars, where they're kind of genre pieces, and definitely okay with that, man. I'm really excited for the Acolyte. And is this, since I mean we've had Leslie Headland signed on. They announced that she was doing a project almost a year ago. So do you think maybe we're getting a High Republic film at some point? I don't know, man. So I'm really, really excited for the Acolyte. We've got 2 more to talk about before we wrap up this episode. 1 more live action and 1 more animated. So let's talk about this live action show coming real quick. They finally announced that we are getting a Lando Disney Plus series. Will be directed by Justin Simeon, I think is how you say his name. Jay, you're of the mindset that this is going to be the sequel series to Solo. You still standing by that?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to mask the fact that it's going to be a sequel to Solo. Now, I'm not trying to detract anything away from Lando, because the way I envisioned Solo panning out would be all man Lando. And I think Stephen mentioned this earlier before we started recording, that I was envisioning all man Lando Calrissian telling some stories. And I think here, because we knew that we had an idea that the Solo movie was going to spin off. You had Darth Maul at the end. Solo mentioned, right, let's now go to Jabba. Let's go to Tatooine. So there was stories that were going to be laid out for us to see. Obviously, that didn't go down the way it was expected to go down. So I think here we're going to have this Lando series, and I think throughout this Lando series we're going to see a fair amount of Han Solo. Now, I know Donald Glover and Alden Ehrenreich haven't been confirmed as the cast members, but I do think that you are going to see some Han Solo in you. I think this is how they're going to get into the Solo sequel, is to look at all the best parts that they had planned for the however many sequels they had originally intended to do, take those best parts out, look at Lando, because Lando, regardless of the critical or the commercial success of the movie, regardless of the fan opinions on the movie itself, Lando Calrissian was a smash hit in that movie. Donald Glover aced it. So I think what we're going to have now is a new story written for Lando, and they're going to pepper it and thread the Solo sequel through it.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Richard said. I also wonder if it's going to be more standalone, as in like each episode could be like a Calrissian chronicle, where it's like from the Solo movie where he was telling different stories. And we know that Lando likes to embellish and make it sound better than it was. I mean, if we look at what we've seen of Lando from his different story arcs, from the novels, from the comics, from even Rebels, he was always trying to do the next business idea, and he was always trying to make himself more powerful in the galaxy. And so I think with Lando, we could see almost a different adventure or a different planet or a different business tactic each week, and kind of see how, things didn't always go the way that he planned, but he was always so smooth with whoever he came into contact with. And I agree with Richard. I think it would be awesome to see, Billy D. Williams maybe telling members of, the Resistance, telling them after episode 9 what was his life like growing up, and how, could you imagine, even if, I don't think it would happen, but if we could see some of this stuff like Lando and Luke on Pisana, or, I mean, wouldn't it be just amazing if they could get Harrison Ford back to see old Han and Lando on one more adventure that took place before Force Awakens. I think that would just be amazing to see those guys together again.
That's a theory I can get behind. That is a theory of yours, Stephen, I can get behind. Harrison Ford and Billy D.
Same here.
Oh my God,
it's a dream.
Stephen, you've won.
It's a dream.
You've won the podcast. You've won the podcast.
Oh,
you've got me with that. Now that's a poll you should put out, because I'm with you on that.
Now, are they going to be able to get Harrison Ford back? I don't know, but I think, wouldn't that be awesome if they kept that a secret, and if he was able to show up for a short cameo just to see them one more time together? That's my hope. I'm looking forward to something a little bit different, and a fan favorite character, kind of seeing him fleshed out a little bit more.
Well, in regards to Harrison Ford coming back, as we all know, Lucasfilm, when we watched the show last night, Lucasfilm has greenlit another Indiana Jones movie, the final chapter in Indiana Jones. So he's already there working with them. So it's not a far stretch to suggest that he could very well end up somewhere in the Lando series with an old, with Billy D. Williams, with old man Lando. So it's not a far stretch, man. I think that's something I hadn't considered. I got goosebumps, man. I didn't even consider that. That's a theory that you've won me on. Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. And the same line of thought. I was just thinking that I was hoping rather that it's going to be one season, and I know I want more, but one season is going to give it a lot of gravitas, and it would be a set of like chronicles linked together, where the time in between episodes would differ. 2 episodes would be right off the back of each other, and then perhaps another episode would be years ahead. The idea is that we would get to see so many different characters. We'd get to see young Lando, Donald Glover, with young Han Solo, and I can't remember, Kira, I think her name was, the character. Yes.
Yes.
Emilia Clarke back in there for like 1 or 2 maybe events. Holy crap. If Darth Maul shows up maybe for a little cameo with, right off the back of what happened in Solo, and Lando through his dealings maybe with the Hutts, we might get a little bit of Jabba action. I'm hoping that, I think that this show is going to be the fan service. I would hope that this show would be the fan service we've all been waiting for, sort of thing. Like, yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be the heart. Lando is going to be the fun. It's going to be, he gets to see we get to see all the other corners of the Empire we've wanted to see, all the other corners of the galaxy, which we've been, let's have Lando shoot up Jabba's old place just to get Han Solo out of a jam. Or let's have Lando help Han Solo deliver a set of goods, just to make sure that Darth Maul stays off their ass, and because Kira's mixed up in this again. Or old Lando and Harrison Ford. Oh my goodness, that would just be the icing on the cake, wouldn't it? With Chewie, with the Falcon. Perhaps, I was asking you guys before the show, why was the Millennium Falcon different in Solo than in, the rest of Star Wars? He said, because there were some modifications done to it and so on. So when are we going to see the modifications? Are we going to see what happens to it? Are we going to see that? That's going to be fantastic, because Millennium Falcon is a character on its own, isn't it? It's an asset. It has its own personality. I was just checking. Me and my fiance were thinking about doing a huge Lego project for ourselves for Christmas, something for us to keep going back and forth with. And I was like, boom, Millennium Falcon right now. Let's check it out. $800 that costs on the website, on Lego website. $800 for the Millennium Falcon Lego. Unbelievable. US dollars. Yeah, it wasn't much better when I looked at the Death Star. I don't even want to tell you that number. But the thing is that it's going to be pretty cool. A lot of hopes for that show. I think that's the most hopeful. The show we're most hopeful about. Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, we're pretty much guaranteed a certain set of things. But with Lando, there's a lot of different tracks this could take, and we love all of them, don't we? I don't think there's a particular. I would feel like it's an opportunity missed if Lando, if it's only Lando's adventures with his droid, which was a very fun droid. She was, and I say she, she had that sort of feisty woman character sort of thing going on. I think it would be an opportunity missed because we want to see him interact with the favorites. So that's why I would hope to see it as a sort of chronicling of Lando's best hits, so to speak. There was a novel which I'm planning to buy. I forget the name of it now, but it was a Han Solo and Lando adventure. I can't remember what it's called now.
Was it Last Shot?
Yeah, Last Shot.
No, Last. There you go. Last Shot. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, Last Shot. Yeah. See, if it's going to be something along the lines of that novel, only perhaps that would be 2 or 3 episodes only, and then we get hopefully like let's say a season of like 15 episodes rather than 10 or 8. You know what I mean? Just to be like one sort of chronicling altogether.
And USEF, that novel, Last Shot, kind of bounced back and forth between different time periods, young Lando and older Han and Lando. So maybe, again, that's kind of my hope, that we do bounce back and forth through time a little bit.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that novel hit 3 different time periods. It was like quote unquote present day, which was old Han and Lando. And then it went to Han after he got the Falcon, and then Lando before Han got the Falcon. So it was when each time, when each of them had the Falcon younger, and then when they were together. So yeah, that I think that idea has definitely, you just picked me up with that idea with the Han and Lando thing, bringing Harrison Ford back. That'd be so cool to see Harrison Ford and Billy Dee together again. God, that'd be cool. So
one last mission, before they split up, before Force Awakens. I think that would be a great season finale, series finale. That would just be amazing fan service, but it would be so well earned too.
Seeing them together again like that, yeah, that'd be great.
Could you imagine if that show ends and it'll just be like a cameo of Billy Dee and Harrison Ford? And let's just say the whole show is about Lando from going from point A to point B and all the things that gone on in between. And then it gets to the very end, right, after Donald Glover, which I'm assuming is going to be the one cast. It gets to the end and it's just old man Billy D. Williams and yes, and that's how I did that. It just turns to Harrison Ford goes, shut up, you liar. I did all that. And it's them arguing at each other.
None of that ever
as the show
happened.
ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of that ever happened. That'd be amazing. Yeah, you're right. Just for that last little kick in the ribs.
Like the Kessel Run. You know, when Han says on Solo, where he goes, he did the Kessel Run, and then Chewie just starts growling, goes, "Not if you let you round up." You know what I mean? Just where they're constantly trying to outdo themselves and just lie. And as you said, as we said earlier, Stephen, embellishing. Stories, how they embellish the stories. But I tell you what would be nice, if it goes through different elements of time, has it yet been determined in canon where Lando got the keys to Bespin? Because that would be awesome to see, towards the end, is this show going to be about how Lando eventually wound up as the director in Bespin? Because that would be great to see. Just that as the finale, and that's how I got Bespin. You liar!
I haven't touched on that yet.
That would be nice to see. That would be a nice touching moment because it bridges. Then you as we were talking about earlier, all of us were saying about all this new content coming out. USEF was saying that there's going to be a lot to come out. Some people may not know where to start, and what Steve said, well, if you want your Bounty Hunter show, you watch the Bounty Hunter. You watch your Jedi show, you can watch Ahsoka. If you want to watch more of Lando Calrissian, you can then just watch the Lando show. The Solo movie, depending as to where the two of them fall, they might have some shows before the Solo trilogy, the Solo movie, and then some shows after. But then it all culminates then in leading into Empire Strikes Back. So you can then just follow that thread straight into the movie. And then towards the rest of the Skywalker saga. So that would be nice to see if they touch on leading Lando towards Bespin. That would be nice to see, just for a completionist's perspective.
Well, we've got one more project to talk about before we wrap up this episode. There was also announced an animated movie that is coming called A Droid Story. It'll feature a new character guided by R2-D2 and C-3PO, and that's basically all they've told us about. All they've said about it so far. So, Jay, what are you thinking this thing's going to be? Do you think it's going to be more along the lines of, a kids kind of kids content, or what do you think, man?
Well, I think this is just going to be the way that Lucasfilm is going to give Anthony Daniels his final way out. We all thought he was going to be in The Rise of Skywalker when he gets his memory wiped, but I think content-wise, I think you're probably going to be looking at something along the lines of the old Star Wars Legends novels, the Tales from Jabba's Palace, the Tales of the Bounty Hunters, where there's just each chapter is a different story about a different character. And I think it could go along those lines. Remember the comic where 3PO gets the red arm? You remember that comic?
Yes.
One of your favorites.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God.
You that puts this in good stead. But I think it's going to be things along those lines. You might have, I don't know how the running time. It could be if it's a, let's just say they go around the lines of having a 15-minute show, 15-minute episodes. It could just be a story about how 3PO and R2 in the escape pod when they get off the Tantive. So they're in the escape pod, and what conversation, what interactions did they have whilst that thing was plummeting toward Tatooine? When they then get separated, what was all the little things that's happening? It could be something along that line, something easy to watch, something that's not heavy on the drama. Or it could go the other way. You could have, like the comic, you could have 3PO running this spy network, this cyber spy network for the Republic, and seeing how that then furthers their adventures. So it's out of all the shows that's been announced, this is the one that I've kind of gone, oh, okay, interesting. But but I've got no opinion on it as of yet.
Yeah, I agree with what you were saying earlier, Brian. I think, if most of these shows that we talked about today for Disney Plus are going to be like, if we had to compare them to like the adult novels, I think the Droid story is probably going to be the young adult novel, and there's nothing against that. I love Lost Stars; it's one of my favorites. So I feel like there's still going to be something special in here, no matter what age you are. You can still take something from this. What I'm curious about is a couple things. What time frame is it taking place in? Is it after Episode 9? It mentions a new hero. I mean, what if R2D2 and C3PO are like, turned off for a period of time, and now they're coming back online to help someone new in the galaxy 10, 20 years in the future? Who knows? I think I'm also curious that, I don't know how much Industrial Light and Magic, has been involved in the other shows like they were with the movies, but the fact that Kathleen Kennedy really focused on this is a heavy production with ILM makes me think, what kind of new technology, what kind of new droids, what kind of new special effects are we seeing that's going to make this stand out and maybe make it different than some of the other productions we talked about today? So, even if it's going to be more for a different audience, I do still think that no matter who you are, young or old, you're going to get something special because, C3PO and R2D2 have been the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of like Shakespeare's version of Star Wars. They've been throughout all 9 films. They've been witnessing to everything. So it might be a good way. I like how Richard said, maybe this will be Anthony Daniels' swan song, or if they could like do something to wrap up these characters, and that way we don't have to feel like we need to see them again for a time. I think that would be great. What do you think, USEF?
Well, I'm first of all, yes, we're definitely going to get something special, exactly as you guys said. I like the idea that Richard said, but I do think that it's going to be an entirely new character or set of characters even. Let's face it, droids are always, attractive characters in Star Wars. When BB-8 was introduced, I have a huge BB-8 mug. I've got one of those remote control droids where I've got my app and I control, the Sphero droids where I've got I've got a BB-8 and I've got a Sith. Sorry, not a Sith. And I've got a First Order BB-8 which is black. BD in Jedi Fallen Order. He's also quite a favorite. In every other, the droid is usually the comic relief. The droid is usually the good guy, gets us out of jams. R2D2 kicking the droids and spilling oil over him, lighting him on fire. That was some of the funniest stuff that I've ever seen, not just in Star Wars, like ever, like a character like that. Yeah, the droids, man, they're probably going to be something new entirely. Hopefully they're just going to be some of our favorites. But, the story of a droid perhaps helping out the master, helping out kids, around Coruscant, I don't know. It's going to be an adventure, I suppose. Perhaps young adult, perhaps even younger than young adult. Something to attract, the preteen a little bit. Thing is that, droids, they take on, there's so much design effort. If you watch Jedi Fallen Order making of tapes, they're on no matter what version of the game you bought, they're on it's in the bonus content. Or if you've opened up YouTube, I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. The design they went through to create BD, oh my goodness, like the stages and the scratch, and then you see how BD almost looked like. There was this one of the guys in the animation studio were like, yeah, he was almost that. And then you look at it and you're like, no way, that can't be BD, because you've played the game, because you felt his character, you felt how his dynamic is with Cal, so you sort of understand. You're like, no, that can't be BD. So honestly, they get the personality of their own, they get the character of their own. That's what's going to be pushed in this show. This isn't the time to talk about this, but I'm gonna leave it out there. There's this debate I want to have later on with you guys privately or on the podcast if we want to, about whether or not a droid, if it can make its own decisions, therefore is it sentient or not, that kind of thing. If it deserves rights and all of that. AI debate and all that. Yeah, this is what a droid story is kind of pushing here. These are characters. These are characters of their own. They have code, but that code says that they have feelings. They go on adventures. They get exhilarated. They get happy for their their partners, owners, masters, builders. C-3PO looks at Anakin and goes, "Oh, my maker!" Unbelievable. Yeah. That could be a very long series. That could be successful enough to rival Cars. And I'm serious. Like, Cars is immensely successful. Steve McQueen is Lightning McQueen. Sorry, Lightning McQueen is just incredible. He's here in Egypt on backpacks in poor neighborhoods. Like, people don't even watch the movie. They just love the cars. When they see it on TV on the kids channel, played once every 2 weeks or something. It's huge. It's massive. People just go and they watch it. Even grown-ups watch it. And the droids could turn into that, and not just they could be seasons and seasons. Yeah, it depends on. I'm not sure what they have cooking up there, but it's got its own pot. That's for sure.
It's interesting, the theory that you've mentioned about the artificial intelligence, although the droids that we've seen so far in Star Wars doesn't necessarily have AI. And I'm trying to think in Legends whether or not any of them had any AI as well, but I don't believe so. But I could be wrong, because there's an insane amount of material there. But it would be nice to see, maybe not a whole range of droids, but maybe if there was one droid, that ended up going through the short circuit Johnny 5 routine and became alive. One of the things I'm looking forward to, and I hope we see in this show, this mystery partner that they mentioned, this extra droid. What if it's Mr. Bones?
Oh God! Like, they're gonna bring in like a live action Roger from the Legos.
Well, isn't it animated?
Mr. Bones would be cool though.
But yeah, he's colourful, and isn't it supposed to be an animated show? And he's red and black, and he's got bones on his arms and bones on his head. So, it depends. I don't know if this is going to follow a set timeline or if it's going to be adventures from all sides of the timeline. Because, we know where 3PO comes into it. We know where R2 started. At least for episode 1, we saw him as part of the crew for the Royal Naboo starship, where he pops out to fix the top. But was he straight from the factory? Did he have some other adventure before that? So it would be nice to see, when it comes out, because you haven't got to deal with aging characters or trying to pass off an actor who's clearly in their mid-30s portraying a character that's in their 60s. So you can have complete free reign with this. You could jump ahead 100 years after the rise of Skywalker and still have 3PO and R2, albeit relics. But those protocol models, we see them in episode 1 during the very beginning. The silver-plated protocol droid is the one that welcomes the Trade Federation, the Jedi into the Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan into the diplomatic talks. So, how far back has this particular model been on the shelf for? So you've got a lot more room for creativity on this show than you would with any of the other shows, because the other shows you have to follow an established timeline or establish the timeline as you go along, but eventually follow it, and it's going to link up into something else. Where this show could go any place it wants to go. It can miss out the movies entirely and just jump so many years into the future. It can go so many years into the past. I'd like to see Mr. Bones, though. That's a personal favourite of mine. Hey, we could even bring in a HK model and call somebody a meatbag.
There's four different characters that come to mind here. It's almost like a sort of diamond. I'm drawing lines in between them. BD, Bicentennial Man, Robert Williams, Big Hero 6. I can't remember the name of the robot in Big Hero 6. And honestly, the concept, flying in between those characters, it's fantastic. I think there's a lot of possibility. It depends on how we play it, sort of how Disney wants to see it come alive. If it's going to be and the fourth was WALY. You know, it depends on how they play it. It could be 100 years into the future. It could be 100 years into the past. Could be something irrelevant to the story entirely. But yeah, it's exactly as you just said. You know, there is no fixed way or method how to go about this. This is pretty cool. You're trying to give content for the sake of people who want to see this kind of fun content. I'm pretty sure it's going to be funny and kid friendly. Pretty sure. You know, there's 90% chance of it being preteen or, you know, a young adult. There's genuinely no war in there going to happen. Maybe you might blast something by mistake. Yeah, it could be one of those things, kind of like a robot arm in Iron Man, the assistant to Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man sort of thing. And then that gets a character of its own and sort of grows up and has to fix something. Bob the Builder comes into play here. Bob the Builder, you know, with his aid, you know, all of the different items that come to his aid, all the different trucks and the concrete pouring thing and whatever, and you know, all of these different inanimate objects which have their own character, not Toy Story-ish, but more like Thomas the Tank Engine or the Train Engine. Sorry.
Yeah, because we know, watching episode 1, that Anakin builds 3PO. Now, but you see loads of those protocol models scattered throughout all Star Wars medium. So, you know, did he actually scavenge every single part and build it from scratch? Or did he find in, let's just say, Watto's shop, did he find a broken, busted relic of a protocol droid and then start to fix it and piece back all the bits that was missing? That then extends 3PO's life, you know, his lifespan. Because as far as we know, Anakin built him from scratch, right? Or we just know that he built him. We don't know how far in the process this droid was when Anakin picked him up. All we know is that, yeah, Anakin built this droid. So it would be nice to see whether or not 3PO had some essence, some form of existence before that. Because it would be a bit of a coincidence if Anakin builds this droid and it happens to look like 1,000 of the other protocol droids that have rolled off the factory floor. So maybe 3PO was dumped in pieces in Watto's shop, or was acquired by Watto somewhere along the line, maybe as part of a gambling prize, you know, betting on the pod races. I'll give you X amount of Republic credits. And not Republic credits. They were worthless, wasn't they, in Tatooine? But X amount of credits. No, they were trading in Republic credits. You know, X amount of credits and maybe some salvage material. And Watto just junked him. And then maybe Anakin then pieced together what he could find to fit this frame, this husk of a protocol droid. Because that would just free up so much more. You know, even if it went back 200 years, you could then turn around and have an in-house joke that 3PO was around during the High Republic. You just never saw him, but he was around during that time. So you could still kind of keep that in-house joke where the droid was there as the narrator to see it all through. So the level of creativity or the scope for creativity in this can go off the chain.
Well, there you have it, guys. That's everything that was announced at the Disney Investors Call. This is what the future of Star Wars is going to look like as of right now. And this isn't even everything. There was a tweet put out afterwards that this doesn't involve video games or VR or anything else like that that's coming down the line as well. So there's a lot more than just this, and we'll cover it as the announcements are made. But guys, we're going to put up a YouTube poll. What are you most excited for out of all of this stuff being announced? What is the one thing you guys have at the top of your list that you cannot wait to see? Head on over to our YouTube channel. We'll put a link in the description of this podcast for that poll. Let us know what you guys think. Last week we put up a poll, and Jay's going to love this. Last week we put up a poll. Me and Steven kind of jumped on board for this idea that Mace Windu was going to pop up at the end of this season of Mandalorian. And guys, you let us have it. You let me and Steven have it. And Jay was even in the comment section nagging it on. But we put on the poll. Will Mace Windu appear at the end of The Mandalorian, Chapter 16, to collect Grogu and come face-to-face with Boba Fett once again? 19% of you said yes, we're building up to Boba Fett and Mace Windu facing off. The other 81% of you said no, we were off our rocker. And honestly, after seeing tonight's episode of Mandalorian, I no longer think that's going to happen.
I agree with you, Brian.
Yeah,
I think
I don't
it's
think
a long
so.
shot.
But it was fun to talk about for a minute though, and it was fun to kind of think about. And I swear one of these days we're gonna see Mace Windu again. Maybe it won't be a Mandalorian, but we are going to see him again. So
Yeah, definitely. I still stand by my original thing is that Mace is the one that picks up Grogu and takes him off. And then I'm hoping that we see at one point then Hayden Christensen as Vader take him out in the Jedi Temple. Because it would be Vader, you'd see Vader in action, but not armor-plated Vader. You would actually see Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader, wrecking, fully embraced by the dark side, just going at it as Darth Vader, but not the suited armored version Darth Vader, because you don't really see much of that in the film. Because obviously, when he's killing the children, George isn't going to show there, so he cuts away from all that. Then you see him then as he travels to Mustafar. Takes out the Trade Federation, higher echelon level, Newt Gunray, the Viceroy, takes out Poggle the Lesser, and then there's the fight with Obi-Wan. So we never really get to see what Vader was like before the armor. We see Anakin, but not necessarily Vader. And I think that it could just be a one-off, a limited series, 3 episodes, just showing, okay, they name drop. Let's just say they name drop Mace in Mandalorian as the person that saved Grogu. Everyone's like confused, like what? And then bang, you get a 3-episode series and showing you how it's done. And then an end and then they give him his out where Vader takes him down.
Fair enough. Well, that poll is still up on the YouTube channel. If you guys want to go over and let us know, you guys can still do that. But the new poll will be up as well, so make sure to look out for that too. We're not going to do any mailbag questions this week. We've already gone for almost 3.5 hours. But we had plenty to talk about this week, and sitting through that call, I knew this was going to be a long episode going through all of this stuff. So no mailbag questions this week, but we will be doing mailbag questions next week. And actually next week will be the finale of Mandalorian. So the episodes should probably start getting smaller after we get through Mandalorian, and we'll be going back to book reviews, stuff like that, discussions along those lines. So thank you guys and gals for tuning in this week. We sure appreciate it. If you're new to the podcast and you like what you hear, be sure to give us a follow on whatever app or site you're listening in on. Follow us on the Facebook page for the Star Wars Canon Podcast to stay up to date on what's going on in the world of Star Wars. If you'd like to support the Canon Podcast, you can do so a couple of ways. You can support us at anchor.fm/Star Wars Canon Podcast, or you can check out our Patreon account and show some love there. Also, if you'd like to contribute to keeping the Star Wars Canon Library mobile app alive, you can contribute to our PayPal pool. If you'd like to get a question on the Star Wars Canon Podcast, you can email it to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. All of those links can be found in the description of this podcast episode. We're glad you decided to hang out with us for a while this week. And as always, may the Force be with you.